Jay, do you think you could throw that call-in number again?
Sure, yeah, give me a moment to.
I might be able to pull it up too. I just didn't know if we could,
Fine.
if there was a way to have that visible.
Yeah.
Jay.
So we are live on YouTube, just so you guys know.
I'm trying to find an 800 number here. Or
I've got yeah, I can read off one of the non-800 numbers.
yeah, I'm just gonna do a copy and paste. Hang on one sec. To get back to. That's part one. I did get a text from Rick Duperry saying he's having trouble logging on. He's saying his camera isn't working, so if he makes it, you may not be able to see him. And I guess I don't know his number. Let's see.
All right.
And Robin Saunders won't be joining us this evening. Not sure if that word got out yet, but she had another appointment come up. I think something work she had to jump on.
All right. Well, you want to give Rick another minute and see if he can solve it, or should we jump in and let him know he's a go when he arrives?
Let's see, he just texted me. Give me one moment.
Sure. And just so you know, I have called in on the attendee line with my phone just in case my connection, which has still been incredibly spotty recently, I'll be able to at least continue listening until I can rejoin the meeting.
Yeah, I think if we do lose you, we can elevate your phone. That way you could still participate at least through that. And then, so be ready
I'm
to
gonna be daring an attempt to use the video feature here until I can get us onto the first agenda item, and then I'll probably again stop my video feed just so I have a better shot at maintaining connection throughout the meeting. All right. Okay, we're going to call this meeting to order. We know Rick is working on joining us. So welcome everyone to the Monday, May 11th, 2020 Town of Scarborough Planning Board meeting. I'll call this meeting to order. The first item up on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Jay, do we have the technical?
We do.
We do.
Fantastic. If you could all join me, please, in stating the pledge. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag
To the flag,
of the States of America,
United States of America,
republic
to the
which stands one nation,
one nation,
under God,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty and
liberty
justice
and
for all.
justice for all.
Can we do that again? I was muted.
Thank you. Next is the roll. We are without Doreen this evening, so I'll do the roll. Rachel Hendrickson,
Here.
Jennifer Ladd,
Here.
Rick Meinking,
Here,
Roger Beely,
Here.
Robin Saunders, Rick Duperi, Nicholas McGee, here. All right, I show we have 5 members present. Rick Meinking, you are an alternate. You will be a voting member this evening unless Rick Duperi joins us. And then once Rick Duperi can join us, back to being alternate. So that is that. I have a quick announcement to make on the technical side if you're joining us at home. We have, this is a remote meeting using Zoom. People can access this meeting by going to the Town of Scarborough Planning Board's webpage. And if you want to just view the meeting, you can click on the YouTube link. If you want to attend the Planning Board meeting virtually and provide comment during the meeting, then you should click on the Zoom link. Our Planning Board recommends that written comment be submitted, public comment be submitted in writing prior to the meeting. That way we have some time to review it before we get to a topic. However, it is possible to still provide us that input during our Zoom meeting conference. Directions on how to do this can be found on the Planning Board's webpage. All attendees in this conference, other than the panelists, are muted and they must raise their hand to be called on during the public comment parts of this agenda. Please raise your hand only when it's time for public comment and not during the applicant's presentation or board deliberation. If I happen to drop off the meeting as chairman due to technical difficulties, Vice Chair Rachel Hendrickson will take over the meeting until I am able to return, which has happened, and Rachel's becoming very good at it. So thank you all again. The next item is number 4, which is the approval of minutes for the March 5th, 2020 and April 15th, 2020 meetings. If you've had a chance to review them, I'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
And do I have a second? I have a first from Rachel and a motion from Rachel and a second from Rick. Do we have any discussion? Yes, Rick.
just one item on page 5 of April 15th minutes. It was said that I said to be cautious of small scale energy. And I want the record to show that I don't think I've ever said that in my entire life. What I may have said is that be cautious of the requirements required on the sizing of these electrical small scale energy systems. But I don't think I'd ever say be cautious of them. Maybe the parameters. Just want to clarify that.
Thanks, Rick. Any other changes to the minutes? No? Okay, so I'll make a recommendation that we accept these minutes based on the motion, the second, and the input received from Mr. Meinking regarding the reworking of the language on page 5 of the April 15th minutes. All in favor, please. We have to do a roll call vote on that. Roger Beely.
On March 5th, I was absent from that meeting.
Okay, so you're gonna abstain from March 5th and on April 15th. Do you approve?
Yes,
With the changes noted by Rick? Thank you.
yes.
Rick Meinking? Rick,
Yes, I approve.
thank you. Rachel Henderson,
Yes, I approve.
Jennifer Ladd,
I approve.
Nicholas McGee, I approve. With the changes so noted by Rick. All right, thank you. Our next item on this meeting is the Ram Management Co., Inc. requests a site plan amendment for 200 US Route 1, Assessor's Map U44, Lot 15. Jamel?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this project, as you may recall, is actually located in the existing Centerville Farm development along US Route 1. The applicant was last before the board in February, actually. Just to recap, the applicant's proposing a 12,000 square foot, 2-story office building within the rear portion of their property. Staff has noted this before, but the language in the TVC zoning district requires maximum front yard of 90 feet for a principal building abutting Route 1. So given that the TVC 2 and 3 zoning districts require only one principal building closest to the abutting streets to meet the maximum yard setback, staff, as you guys may recall, we had a public hearing at the last set of meetings. Staff's in the process of updating this ordinance to better align with the other TVC zoning districts. So the board will be unable to take final actions on this project as proposed until the zoning ordinance is amended. And I believe that zoning change is on the council's next meeting for second reading. Back to the project. As requested, the applicant has included a new sidewalk along the US Route 1 frontage. While the town would typically require an esplanade along this very busy travelway, given the limited space, staff has recommended that the applicant eliminate the proposed 3-foot wide esplanade in order to widen the sidewalk to a minimum of 5.5 feet as required for maintenance and operations by the Public Works Department. Staff has also noted that during the last review, several board members requested the applicant provide a walkway or pedestrian connection from the sidewalk along Route 1 to the site's internal sidewalk system, as this would provide a safe connection for employees and patrons on the site. So staff has recommended that this connection be provided with future submissions. At this point, I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Jamel. Appreciate it. Who do we have on this evening for the applicant? Is Mr. Lorden or Mr. Only part of your name shows Golden?
Can you hear me? This is Howard Goldenfarb, speaking
Hi.
for Ram Management Company, and I believe John Lorden from Tigan Bond is also present.
Yes, I am.
And is there an order that you would like to take the present? Well, we've made the presentation, but the response to the comments made by staff?
Yeah, I think you just do a general overview for us of what may have changed and what your some of the bigger higher points, talking points, and then of course after you turn it back over to the board would probably jump into some more specific.
Thank you. I'm going to turn it over to John to review the majority of the comments made. I will come in where I thought it was appropriate, but the one area that I would specifically like to address when John's gone through the others is the interior sidewalk request. So John, if you could follow up with the response to the staff's memo.
Very good. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, John Lorden with Time Bond. Just want to go over some of the majority of the revisions since the last submittal. Am I able to share my screen? Great.
Should be able to. Do you see the?
Yep, it should be coming up now. Do you see the Centerville Farm building?
Yes.
Yes, we do.
Great. So going through the majority of the changes, one thing was this was a full access driveway, the southern drive. We've worked with our traffic consultant. We've made that a right in only. So that's been configured so that someone can't take a left into the site, nor can they come in and exit that way. In addition, we've also put a sidewalk along Route 1, which we'll get into a little bit more, but that has been added to the plans. This area back in here was previously just striped. We've now made it a 4 feet wide, but 6 inches high raised sidewalk. On either entrance, we added benches and bike racks per the comments. We also extended this screen fence further down per an abutter's request. And we raised it from 5 feet to 6 feet. We've been working with the town engineer and Woodard and Curran on some comments related to the stormwater. We believe that the majority of those have been addressed. And we did a whole traffic study that was submitted as part of the package. There are a few still outstanding items and revisions to be made. Some of those are already done, and some of those we'll get in for the next submittal. One of them is the stormwater comments. We believe those have now been addressed, not on the set that you have, but since then we've been continuing to work on it. Elevations, there is a color and material will be added to the rendering. A lighting plan was provided. We got some additional comments. We'll be adding all the cut sheets for the lighting. Circuitry will be added to it. There was a request to have some house shields so that no light is coming back onto the butters, and a note about dimming the lights at 9 p.m. So all those will be on the next revisions. Also a signage plan from the architect will be provided to show what the proposed signage is out front. We had provided an auto turn drawing to the fire chief and got that, got his sign off, but we will add that per comment to the set. And then on the front sidewalk. So we have 7 feet between the face of the curb and the property line. There are some utility poles that are almost right in the middle of it. So the 4-foot wide sidewalk kind of worked. And this is what the 4 foot was recommended by the city engineer. If we go to 5 feet, I guess we're just looking for 5.5 feet. I guess we're looking for direction on, do we want to try to keep a 1.5 foot esplanade strip on the face of the curb and then go right up to the property line? Or do we want to keep it right on the face of the curb, but then you're likely to have a utility pole right in the way? So I don't know if anyone's able to weigh in on that one.
All right, is that it for the,
Yeah, then the other 2 things to discuss were deciduous trees being added. We're just looking for guidance on what they're looking for. It was up in this area. It's very heavily mature growth in there. We're not really sure. We're just looking for more direction on that. And then the pedestrian path through the site, which Howard will get into. But yeah, if we could start tackling that sidewalk along the front, and the town's preference on how to configure that, it'd be helpful.
all right. And then, so typically what we'll do is just kind of go through your entire presentation, then we'll
Yeah.
get to public comment, and then we'll get the board to kind of give you some feedback and ask you the questions or to some
That's
of the
very,
questions.
thank you. That's everything I wanted to highlight. We'd be happy to take any questions at this time.
Let me talk now referencing the interior sidewalk. There is effectively no way of connecting the new building and the sidewalks by construction of a sidewalk. What we'd be prepared to do is to provide, because there are several places now where it's striped where people cross the parking lot to get to a particular location. Further striping needs to be done, but it's impractical to build a sidewalk that goes from the new building to the street and from the existing building to the street without either destroying what the building is well respected for, which is the existing landscaping, and destroying some of that literally because there's not enough room. And what we thought would be an acceptable, should be an acceptable, we hope, solution is to tie in the sidewalks that we have with striped areas clearly marked and maintained to go out to connect to the two exits now that go across to the sidewalk that we'll be building. But to build sidewalks would really destroy the appearance of the project for what we believe would be not very essential requirement. People cross parking lots regularly, in some cases with far, far more traffic, both foot traffic and car traffic than we would have on this site. People have been doing it from the existing building since it was built in the early 90s without ever having an incident. The number of additional people that will be joining the other building and the number of additional cars and the traffic in and out is unlikely to create a problem if we stripe it properly, which we'd be prepared to do.
All right.
That's
Thank
my
you.
discussion. Glad
Thank
to
you very
answer
much.
questions, but that's my discussion.
Okay. We actually have an opportunity for public comment this evening. If you are in attendance and you would like to speak, what you do is there's a little raise my hand feature on your panel. If you do that, I'll give everyone a quick minute to try to locate that button. And then if you do wish to speak, I'll call on you and you'll have 4 minutes to give us some feedback on the project. Okay. I don't see any hands raised, so I'm going to turn it over to the board and see if Rachel, do you want to jump in on this one?
Sure. I'm going to leave the sidewalks to somebody else, but I do want to address the issue of the architecture and reinforce the staff comments that we really need to see all sides of the building. While it may be similar, or it's not going to be identical because it doesn't have the door. While it may be similar on all sides, we have to see that. And then once we see it, we also have to ensure that there's adequate landscaping that actually goes all around the building, or that there's adequate buffering coming close to the rear of the building. So I do want to emphasize that we really expect to see that, or I expect to see that at the next meeting. Other than that, I think it's the architecture of the building is in keeping with what's there. I'm never entirely sure if what the color I see on my computer screen is the color that you intend, the developer intends to have on there. So I would look for a bit of a description. I know names of paints tend to get fanciful, but if it's exactly the same as what is currently there in the other building, then that's the sort of thing I need to know.
That's our intention, is to do it exactly as the same, the roof materials,
Okay,
the siding, et cetera.
Then I think that needs to be mentioned. It needs to be on the plans what it is.
I thought,
And
in
as I said,
fact,
I
that
need
was
to
on an
see-
earlier
I
plan.
need to see the back of and the side of the building because we do look at all of the elevations. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. May I
Thank you,
ask,
Rachel.
I thought that the, John, that was on an earlier plan? Because that
We had
question. was
added a
raised
note.
before. Yeah.
We had added a note, but I believe the board's looking for something on this architecture plan. It's going to call out some of the materials and the colors.
Okay, that's easily done.
Roger.
Sure. First, I think it's going to be a very attractive piece of property when it's all done. And I like the fact that the building's going to basically replicate the existing building. I want to get a clarification on the access and egress points here, just for my own sake. I understand the southbound entry from Route 1 is going to be an entry only. The north, that driveway on the northern portion, is that going to be both ways, in and out?
That would be full access, right in,
Okay.
right out, left in, left out.
Okay, and then the roadway going towards the bank.
This interconnection,
Is that just one way?
that is, it's a one-way exit towards the traffic, the way.
Okay, and is there signage there right now?
There's a
Indicate
stripe area. There's a one-way arrow that is maintained. That is not our property. That's the property of the bank and Starbucks. But there is a one-way arrow that was put in when it was originally built by the bank.
But right now, if there's vehicles on your property, they can exit your property going
That
through
was
there.
a requirement made by the town when they were developing the property next door.
Okay, good. Okay. I tend to agree regarding with the Golden Bob regarding the sidewalks, because this is a complex arrangement here. And actually, I think the complexity makes it kind of interesting. And And based on the current landscaping of the existing property, I feel very confident that the landscaping on the new, around the new building will be very similar. I don't see any reason why it wouldn't be, but I understand the need to have the information. I guess I don't really have anything further to add. I guess I'm going to talk about the sidewalk. Are we all set on the sidewalk, Jamal?
Do you want me to, Nick, do you want me to, I guess, address the Route 1 sidewalk?
Sure.
So that
Yes,
you can
please.
get some feedback, I think, from the board would be helpful.
Absolutely.
Thank you. As John talked about, there's utility poles along Route 1, and so him trying to work within that 7 feet, and obviously, as Roger said, they also have landscaping behind that. So I'm sure that's part of the issue too, to not even go in towards, I guess, the sidewalk easement. Is that part of the issue as well? It's really just confined to the 7 feet, correct?
Correct. There's
Okay.
some grading issues. There are landscaping, there's signage.
Yeah. So the thought is, and I think as John had mentioned, when you start getting into an esplanade that is less than 4 feet, it really doesn't survive, especially along Route 1, and becomes just dirt. Obviously, they spend a lot of time, effort, and money on this property and the landscaping that looks really nice. I'd hate to have a dirt patch in the front. So one of the things we talked about as staff is maybe in lieu of having that esplanade kind of moving that sidewalk along curb line. The problem then becomes winter operations and the snow plows going down the sidewalk. So in that case, I was hoping that we could get to a point where you have the 5.5 foot, and that's to face a curb sidewalk. So a snow plow can go down, but then have to bump out, and you can transition that, maybe taper it out and around some of those sidewalks. And so it almost becomes more of a meandering sidewalk, but not leaving, but actually paving that in, so you don't end up with these dirt patches, I guess. Just because of the salt use along Route 1, sand and salt, very difficult to keep any kind of vegetation along that stretch.
I'm not sure, this is Howard Goldenfarb speaking. I'm not sure I understand what you said relative to the meandering sidewalk. In other words, are you requesting a 4-foot sidewalk? Or
No.
are you requesting the 5.5 foot sidewalk?
5.5 foot sidewalk is what we've always required, because we need, well, at least a 5 because of the width of our winter operations equipment to clear that sidewalk.
Is that what's built in front of the, is that the same width that's built in front of the Starbucks and the Benefit Savings?
Yep, exactly.
John, I don't have a detailed plan in front of me. How would the 5.5 work? Right now, between the grass and the curb, we've used rock over the last several years and keep it weeded over the course of it, simply because the grass would die out or weeds would just grow in there. So we put rock in about 18 inches from the actual curb.
And
But
that's
how would
another
that-
option too.
I'm sorry?
If you're open to that, I mean, that's another option. To give us any space from Route 1 is obviously a plus when you're walking. If you guys have a way to maintain that, the town does not have the capability of maintaining such a narrow strip like that and make that look.
We just maintain it with weed killer. I mean,
Well, we're
that's
not-
all we can do.
We don't
I
use-
won't tell you what we're using, but we can make it with weed killer. But I actually do it myself. There's a certain pleasure that comes out of that for some reason. But how is what you suggested, John? Would that allow us to put a 5.5 foot sidewalk in with the poles where they are?
We
I
would,
can't
so
really-
I'm hearing that it would be along the sidewalk where we can, where we run into a utility pole, we would kind of curve it around it. That's going to encroach onto our property. So is that now a sidewalk easement?
Right. It would probably, if that's the case, but I didn't know how far the pole will take you out, because you said you had 7 feet. So,
Pole is quite close. The pole is very close to the curb.
so if you
Does
have
the
a
town-
5-foot sidewalk, I didn't know if there's a way to keep that, if you're still within the right of way or not.
Do they plow it with a
Yeah.
separate machine, or do they plow it with an attachment to the plow?
No, it's like a blower off a small piece of equipment that they go right on the sidewalk.
So it's right on, it's not off the, whatever's plowing the street.
Right. No, it's not. No.
Yeah, you can see where the pole is located.
Yep.
So what would happen there? It would go in and around, like curve around it?
Can I make a quick suggestion here? We know we're going to have some time before your zoning gets straightened out. And I perhaps just recommend maybe going in and sitting with Angela or Jamel to go over how you can make that work.
Okay.
I think there's an
That's fine.
opportunity there. I just don't want to attempt to engineer it on a
Okay,
Zoom meeting.
sure.
That's great.
All right. Because I think you can get there as
Okay.
also the other part of it.
We can do that.
We can do
And
what
as
they
far
do in
as the-
Southport.
I'm sorry. I think Roger, do you still have some more
No.
questions or comments?
No, I'm all set. I think that's a good suggestion, Nick.
All right. And so Jennifer, do you have anything, the applicant?
I do. I think Angela's suggestion of just routing that sidewalk around the poles is a good one. It's a typical treatment for, cases similar to that. We're in just as you were talking, I was looking further up and down Route 1, and that line of utility poles is the same distance off the curb line for a very long way. So that's it's unfortunate from a sidewalk standpoint, but the situation that she described is probably the best one, and hopefully that's something that can be made workable. I did just want to thank the applicant for including the traffic study information. I read through all of that, and you didn't really address it in your presentation, but it does sound like there are some improvements coming as a result of that analysis to the signalized intersection at Hannaford Drive and Route 1, which I think will be just a drastic improvement to what's out there. So thank you very much for looking into that. One question I did have on that piece, maybe for Angela, I'm not sure. The recommendation was to go to an exclusive pedestrian phase for this light due to some conflicts for people crossing from a certain direction, which is, sounds like a good idea to me for kind of a short-term fix. But I was just curious if there's any thought to what kind of monitoring we might do to that over time or over a predefined amount of time. Just keeping an eye out for the mainline Route 1 functions and whether or not we would have any ability to tweak that down the road as a result of those changes if it turns out to be problematic. So for example, the scenario was given, it is safer to have the exclusive ped phase to allow pedestrians to cross this intersection with no other vehicle movements happening at the same time. That comes at, at the trade-off of Route 1 functionality, and that if in someday this becomes a much more frequently used head phase, that could have longer implications. So I was just wondering, from the town's perspective, are we going to, or how are we in the applicant, or how is that, what does that look like kind of longer term?
Yeah, you're right, Jen. We've had a lot of conversations with a lot of the Route 1 signals about having exclusive head phase or not, and it really starts monkeying with the mobility of the corridor. This intersection in particular, that one crossing there for peds has been very problematic, and we talked about doing a lot of different things. As you said, I see it, if that's the route we go with, it would be a very short term. I don't think that's the solution for that intersection. It's really about trying to make that a safe crossing rather than just stop all traffic to let a pedestrian across. So we do, I guess in the background, staff has been looking at this intersection and studying it and trying to figure that out and have a list of of things that probably improvements that should happen over time at that intersection. And it's really about finding opportunities to partner and work with those contributing to that intersection and try to resolve that.
Okay. Great. The only other thought I had on that was potentially trying maybe like a lead pedestrian interval for a little while, but if you're talking about having extensive conversations about that, I'm pretty sure that probably came up. The other, on the internal sidewalk topic, I do appreciate the extensive and in a lot of places really mature landscaping on this site, but respectfully disagree that it's impossible or really difficult to construct a safe pedestrian connection out to our a major thoroughfare. And I guess would look forward to, it doesn't jump out to me on this plan about what your painting scheme or your plan for making that connection. If it's not dedicated sidewalk on site, then what is it? This plan doesn't really show, doesn't show that, but also just, I feel like safe and ADA compliant pedestrian access has really come more to the forefront than it was probably in the 90s or even, I don't know, 4 years ago. And so it would just be, in my opinion, it would be a great lost opportunity in this case to overlook or bypass that opportunity. For example, the section of the existing parking lot, I'm looking at sheet 102. So this would be sort of like the first long parking stall aisle as you enter the full access driveway from Route 1. Does that make sense? So the easterly, kind of in the northeast corner of the site, it says there's 10 spaces there today. It looks as though you're proposing to run all of the underground utility connections to the new building adjacent to that parking area, which means it'll be fully disturbed anyway. That to me would look like a logical place to restore, a walkable connection out to this corridor. But we can, we'll have another look at this, and I would just encourage you to not only look at opportunities to make that connection because we're asking for it, but because you would, think of it as an amenity to your site as well. Your property is lovely landscaped, and that's, would be really nice to walk through there probably if it was done correctly and, placed up against the edge of an existing parking area like that, for example. It just doesn't seem like it would be really disruptive infrastructure addition. That's all I have.
Thanks, Jen. Appreciate it. And we do have Rick Duperi on. Welcome. Rick, I don't know if you're available for some comment on this or if you missed part of this, but I'd like to give you an opportunity to chime in if you'd like.
Sure, thank you very much. I like the design of the building. I like those structures that you have on the top that make it look very rustic. And I think the rest of the board members did a great job of talking about the sidewalk. So I'm not going to continue to talk about the same thing, but I do like the design and I like where you're going with that building. I think that's all I have.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rick. I appreciate it. Rick Meinking.
Yeah, I do like this site. I think it's really attractive from Route 1. The only additional comment I would make is that based on your photometrics, this is a very, very, very dark parking lot, especially the new parking section where you hook into what is existing. I mean, we're talking no candle power at all. And I know we're going to relook at this and submit cut sheets, but we really need to address, I just don't think you have the coverage here. And when you do resubmit for your lighting plan, I would ask that you show the interactive effects between this new area and the crossover sections of the existing, because that may be able to solve some of the issue. I think one of the issues is your lights aren't very high, and they probably are fairly low in lumen output. And I don't want to really change the character, but at the same time, I don't want to compromise the safety of those people that are going to enter and exit during the dark hours. So I would ask that you maybe take a real good look at that. It might be helpful if you add the calculation summaries and you divide the calculation summaries into the certain areas, specifically like the new parking area that you have and the parking area that's abuts the proposed building site. And let us take a look at that for the next submission.
Okay.
That's all.
Thank you, Rick. So I think the board did a really nice job of covering most of the items on here. I think it's a very attractive building. It's a nice site. We know what the existing building already looks like with that mature plantings. You did a nice job trying to complement that. I think for big takeaways, doing a quick meeting in with Angela and Jamel, just to kind of tie up some of these loose ends and figure out that sidewalk aspect of it. I don't think you're very far away, and I know you have to wait for a council vote. Are there any questions that seem unanswered? And this is directed either at Jamel or the applicant that you think the planning board direction would be needed before you go ahead and try to work that out behind the scenes.
I think John, you speak up as well, please, but I think we received the direction on the sidewalk on Route 1, and that we will show you at least our suggestion for handling the internal sidewalks. I can tell you from having been a tenant of my own building now for almost 13 years, we have a sidewalk that is across from the main entrance to the building. Since there are several entrances to this building, call the main entrance the one that is on the side of the building, the long side of the existing building. And you'll see brick sidewalk that goes in and out from the parking lot. And then across the way, there's on the opposite side, bricks, steps, etc., that walk up and down. And people being, I'm not going to say lazy, people being more direct tend to just walk right up the middle instead of walking on what's a very attractive sidewalk, which we spent a lot of money building at that time. People tend to use the most direct route. And I think part of it is because it's not a high traffic site. But we will actually did submit something to John, but in order to keep our prestigious spot first on the agenda, having missed the last couple of meetings because of the items before us, we thought we would not submit anything before this meeting, or might have pushed us back on the agenda. So we will submit something for the next meeting dealing with the internal sidewalks. John, do you have anything to add to it?
The only thing I'd like a little clarification on is there's a landscaping comment from staff review saying planting deciduous trees along the northerly edge of the northeasterly parking lot.
Is that, I mean, that backs up to the back of Dunkin' Donuts and the barber shop.
Correct. And there's a lot of mature shrubs out there.
Would money not be better spent someplace else than back there? I mean, there's a lot of existing growth back there, and I don't know if this is the right format to talk, but I've been chasing Dunkin' Donuts, who's been discharging their groundwater across my property, destroying the wall and the landscaping for several years. But I mean, that area presently is pretty well landscaped.
I can
Do you want to offer some quick? Thanks.
I just looking at the landscape plan during the review, it just appeared that There could be an area there to plant some deciduous trees just to provide some scale and relief from the large parking area. But if there's no room and there's mature growth, then sorry for the comment, but it just
No,
appears
no.
on the plan.
John, do we have a shot of that? Do you have in one of your slides, you have a shot of that?
I've got the landscape plan up.
No, I mean an actual photograph, not the landscape plan, but the actual photograph of that area.
I can stop the share and then go to a different screen that should have my Google Maps.
I think it's pretty well landscaped already. But whatever.
I don't know if you can see this screen now. This is a lot of the mature landscaping up in here. This is a very large deciduous tree right now. It's about this big. We can see some of the hemlocks or pines in here. So there's just really not much of an area for a large deciduous tree.
We'll look at it further and just make comments at the next time.
Yeah, thanks for
next
sharing the visual there. Okay. Well, if Jamel, is there anything else that you want to clarify before you go forward?
No, I think staff got some good direction tonight. I think the applicant wants to reach out to staff. We can schedule a meeting to go over
Sure.
certain elements if they'd like. But
Thank you.
I think I'm good.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Mr. Goldenfarb and Mr. Loudon, as well as Mr. Torres.
Thank you very much for your time.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, next item on tonight's agenda is LC Holdings LLC, request a site plan review for 31 Higas Parkway, assessors map R50, lot 34D. Jamel?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This project was also on your last agenda, but was tabled due to the late hour. So as a reminder, it's located in the Higas Parkway zoning district across from the existing Horizon Solutions site. The applicant was in front of the board, or was granted master plan approval by the board back in February. And as a reminder, the applicant's proposing to construct a 4,800 square foot building that will consist of a restaurant and bar space. The zoning and site plan standards do require all planned developments to be walkable and pedestrian friendly. So to this end, staff has recommended that the applicant provide a network of walkways throughout the parking area to provide a safe area for pedestrians to walk, and provide a pedestrian gathering area. There appeared to be an opportunity to provide some sort of courtyard feature next to the main entrance of the building. As discussed with the board during the master plan review, the zoning standards require a 25-foot buffer along the Higas Parkway frontage. The board did express they were comfortable with the proposed layout of the utility lines, so long as the applicant minimized the cutting of existing trees and provided new plantings within the buffer area. So staff did recommend that the applicant place the gas line adjacent to the underground electric line to help reduce with any unnecessary cutting in the buffer. And staff has also recommended additional plantings with varying heights to ensure that the buffer strip is maintained. During the master plan review, staff did note the project is located in the Willowdale watershed, which has been designated as threatened by the Maine DEP due to increased development. So staff just wanted to point out that the applicant is proposing 20 parking spaces or so above the requirement. So the board should consider the amount of parking on the site. And I know it's a restaurant use and it's along Higas Parkway, and it'd be worth a discussion about the amount of parking proposed. At this point, I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Jamel. Mr. Gammon?
Thanks, Nick. Try to bring up the. You see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. So Todd Gammon, Blaze Civil Engineers, looking to present tonight on a proposed restaurant called The Barrow for the site plan application. With me tonight, also participating is Matt Provincial, our project architect with Muller Architects, and also Jeff and Christina Charette, who are the applicants under their LLC LC Holdings. We were in front of you in February, as noted, for the site inventory master plan. One of the reasons we triggered that process was due to the size of our parcel, greater than 5 acres. We never had any intention of doing any master planning other than just this building. As noted during that meeting, we went into quite a few of the site plan details actually during the master plan. So much of this should be familiar and hopefully more detailed. In terms of location, we are across the street from the Horizon Solutions building on Higas Parkway. We're just south of, I'm sure you're all familiar with the Foley's Fitness Project. They're just to the north of our parcel. We have a 17.5 acre parcel. It was part of an original subdivision that was approved back in 2006 under, I believe it was 3 Diamond Realty for the Higas Parkway development. So we are tethered to some existing DEP and DOT permits. The restaurant will be a 4,853 square foot restaurant. We have 64 parking spaces. There's 123 seats in the restaurant. They're going to be open from 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. serving lunch and dinner. The main focus of the design, as you can see, have the site layout here in front of you, was obviously most people are aware this side of the west side of Higas, or the east side, topography challenges, wetlands, wanted to stay in the uplands, reduce the wetlands disturbance as much as possible. We also had an easement, this triangular easement that we need to share our entrance with our neighbor to the south, which was lot 8 of the original subdivision. We were lot 9. One of the other criteria for Higas was a 25-foot buffer, fully landscaped. Within our 17.5 acre parcel, we have almost 15 acres that we're leaving undeveloped, undisturbed, only disturbing a few acres. We feel like it's a ideal layout for the lay of the land, for being environmentally friendly in the topography and the geotech. MDOT originally approved this location for our entrance, which is required to be right across from the Horizon Solutions building. So that's what you see there. As Jamel mentioned, we spoke about it in February. We do have 64 parking spaces, which is more than what's required. But I think we were trying to make the case that there's definitely not going to be any off-street parking in Higas with the restaurant situation. The applicant felt like they wanted a few extra parking spaces to, thought it was justified for the restaurant use out in the Higas Parkway zone. Another comment that came up during the staff review was the lack of a sidewalk in the center island. That was purposeful. They were thinking that most people would just walk in the parking lot over to the building, and we can discuss that. That's a 10-foot island that's shown there. One of the things we did was we updated the wetlands line from the original permit. We also, this past month, had our natural resource person go out, actually in April, and verify there was no other environmental concerns with vernal pools. We've also had feedback and coordination with IF&W, Maine Natural Areas, and the Maine Historical Society, and nothing was found in any of those agency reviews. One of the things Jamel mentioned was the utilities here crossing. I think we've tried to efficiently do design for the water, sewer, underground electric, hoping to put a transformer on the pole that's adjacent, coordination with CMP. Also, a comment was made about the gas line. That's easy. We can easily sneak that over by the underground electric to limit the disturbance there of any trees. We have had coordination. We've already received comments back from the Portland Water District Also had approval from, not official district approval, but I've received a letter back from the sewer district. They're okay with the layout. Also had a meeting with the fire department on the turning template for turning in the hydrant that we're going to put on the private side. And they were good with everything else. Also the gas and CMP, as I mentioned. We did ask to reduce the aisle width from 25-foot requirement to 24. We just feel that the 64 spaces is critical for the restaurant, and trying to leave enough area for obviously landscaping and snow storage. In terms of stormwater, tried to keep the grading as tight as possible. We have 2 stormwater filters. One will take care of the building entirely, and one will take care of all the site impervious. I guess as best we could in terms of low impact design and low impact environmentally speaking. Site lighting, our intention was to use all cutoff features. We were hoping to have the lights, be photosensitive and on during the night for safety concerns. We do have wall packs on the building. There was one comment about that. And we also went through most of the comments on the engineering peer review were fairly minor. We were okay with also the traffic peer review, and then happy to discuss some of the staff comments. Maybe after Matt goes through the architectural piece. Here's the landscape plan. We feel we've done quite a bit of landscaping everywhere. Obviously, re-landscaping in the areas where we cut through for the utilities, adding new landscaping in the 25-foot buffer, landscaping in the island, and then the main island at the entrance. I think there was a comment about the light pole and the sign being in that island. We can easily put that right on private property. We had it up into the DOT right away. And we can also show a little 24-foot dashed line. There was a comment on giving an idea where the location would be for the future driveway for lot 8, our neighbor. Matt, did you want to speak to the architecturals?
Sure. You could jump right to the elevations. So we've developed the elevations a little bit more than what you saw the first go around. Simplified a little bit, organized it a little bit better. Have some more simple massing, flat roof. We've got a sort of this feature corner of the entry. We have some outdoor space and a pergola, so that's really the focus. We saw some of the comments about the roof, the fan, the exhaust duct coming up through the roof. We've screened it. Right now, as we start to develop that detail a little bit further, we'll, obviously develop the screening as well. Some small building mounted lights, some covered entries, cutoff fixtures, of course. Maybe jump to the rendering, Todd. This is sort of from the parking area and really shows the feature of the building and the focus on it. This is where the view is. This is where the sun is. So really the front of the building, we're calling this the front of the building basically. While still dressing up the Haggis Parkway elevation, we've simplified it. That's about where we're at now. Some natural materials, earth tones. But you can see here, we think the overall massing and form works pretty well. We think it's coming together pretty nicely here. That's about all I have, Todd.
Okay, thanks, Matt. Yeah, I thought the building came out really good.
All right.
Happy
Do you have
to,
some more, Todd?
Yeah, no, happy to take any questions or cover some of the staff comments. Or...
Yeah, let's see how board discussion goes. And then why don't we start there? So we do have an opportunity for public comment this evening. So if you'd like to speak on this item, if you could just try to find that raise my hand feature in your Zoom panel. I'll give it a second as people search around for it. All right, I don't see any public comment at this time, so I'll close public comment and then turn it over to the board. I'll just jump in and start by saying I think that's a great looking building. Appreciate the architecture and really that's it's unique and yet I like the earth tones throughout it. I think that goes well with some of the other architecture you'll see out in Higas. I'm thinking salt pump wise. I know they also paid attention to the use of more natural color schemes to kind of blend in with the environment out there. So well done on the architecture. I'm glad that you've said that you'll work with those utilities that staff had mentioned. I think that's great that you can do that. As far as parking spots, and I know we need to have this discussion as a board, I'll say that I think given its location and its use, I think the additional parking spaces are warranted. There are not a lot of good areas for anyone to park if this is overflow. Where do they go? So we've also seen in Scarborough restaurants like this have done well and have run out of parking, and parking's become tight, and you find them on the streets, and that creates a bigger problem in the end. So I'm comfortable with the number of parking spots requested this time. As far as the walkway area, I think the landscaping did seem pretty extensive. And I know ordinance wise, we look for those walkways within the site. So I'm not sure. I think it's a good question for the board to discuss real quick. You will be trading if we ask for that walkway throughout the center island areas. We might lose some of that more attractive landscaping. So kind of going to balance the two, I suppose. So those are my thoughts out of the gate. Roger, do you want to go in? Have any thoughts on that?
Sure. I agree with you, Nick, on the parking. As other board members know, I think the table that's used for determining parking spaces for restaurants really has to be revisited. And I really wish somebody, whoever has the power to do that, would look into that, because I think the parking spaces probably more realistically reflect the needs of the restaurant versus what the current ratios are in the town ordinances. So I have no problem with the parking. Regarding the island, when I'm looking at this layout, the other facility in town that this reminds me of is the Nonsuch Brewery, the way that's laid out. And when people go and drive into a parking space, I think they're predisposed when they open their door to get out. If they pull in, they walk to the back of the car. I think that's just almost like a natural thing. I know at that establishment, that's what everybody does. They just walk right down the pavement. So I would prefer to retain that landscape center. I think that really enhances the property much more than putting a sidewalk in there, which I suspect would not be used that much. And in the staff comments, it refers to a large parking within larger parking areas, lots. I guess I would have to know what the definition of larger is, because for instance, I look at really large parking lots in Scarborough, Lowe's and, well, Lowe's in particular, or, there's, or Hannaford, that people don't use it. There's no sidewalks there, So I guess what I'm saying is I would leave that as landscaping. I think it looks really attractive. It will look attractive. I think the building looks really terrific. And I think the parking more realistically reflects the parking needs of this particular facility. The only thing I would suggest, based on the what's going on today, is you might want to consider increasing the outdoor dining. just to make sure you get yourself covered. But I'm more or less being facetious on that. So, but overall, I guess I'm all set.
Thanks, Roger. Rachel?
Yeah, I have a question on the outside area. Is that dining or is that waiting? So is the people going to be eating there, or are they going to be waiting to go to a space inside?
This right here is a patio and a deck out back. So here's the main entrance.
Mm-hmm.
So they can access that from inside the restaurant. So there will be seating outside to the back.
Right. To me, that enters into the question of parking. In other words, if people are going to be eating out there, I don't know if they're going to be able just to take their drinks out there and look at the landscaping. But if that's if there's a planned usage of a certain number of people out there, then I also think the extra spaces are warranted. I go back to the first, right there. Okay, do I see, I actually picked up a magnifying glass to see if I could read what was on the screen. Is there snow storage on that inside area?
In the island?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've shown the snow storage out here in the buffer area, and then along the southern loop road, and we could put some over here as well. There's going to be some area. This is a fairly big area here. I mean, the pavement area is only about 3/4 of an acre. It's not going to be that much actually, but there's quite a bit of space still within that island.
Well, I just was wondering, because it looked as though there was no storage there as well as landscaping. And one of the things to take a look at is if you had planned on putting snow storage in there, then you're in conflict with your landscaping. And
Yeah,
since the print was so small, I couldn't read it. I just was looking at the arrows.
Yep, no, I've got the circle here within that buffer area, and we have it down here around the loop road.
Okay. Now is there any way that you could indicate what you believe would be the connection to the abutting property and how that would work in terms of cars entering into that circular area in your parking area? And where would cars enter from your abutter where the easement is? What would the traffic look like?
Yeah, so they're going to be limited. So this triangle right here, you can see the dash line going up.
Yeah.
That is the easement area for them to access. So you can see just by the layout and the radiuses of coming in, the purpose in bumping that out a little bit was with them in mind. So I'm going to show on the next submission, one of the comments was just showing a dash line. I'm going to dash about a 24-foot line within the easement right off this area that would connect them to lot 8, which is over here, which is 2.5 acres, I believe.
All right. One of the things that's come before us is a proposal is apartments there, which means a lot of people exiting and entering at different times of the day. And I was just trying to visualize how that would work when they hit the circular part of your driveway and they all tried to turn left and there were other people coming in from Higas to get to into your parking lot and to the restaurant. And at some point, I don't know if you're going to have to think about doing a one-way all around, which is not actually ideal at all. But
No.
how that's going to be, how safety is going to be arranged, how that traffic flow is going to work. And it might be easier to think about that now rather than if that apartment complex comes before us for any sort of approval. So I do have a worry because all of a sudden there's a lot of traffic right in that area. That's the potential. I tend to agree that when it comes to restaurants, folks get out of their car, head to the rear, and head to the restaurant. I do think there's an opportunity for some walking areas around the circle, whether it's a gravel area, packed gravel, as people get close to the restaurant. I would love to be able to, I can point on my computer screen, which of course doesn't help you, but right there, thank you. That a walking area, a path on the side of that, on the outside.
Here.
Right, it's simply because I think cars, when they're in a parking lot, tend to slow down because they are aware that some car could back out pretty fast. So as they're traveling through, when they get to an area where there are no cars parked and the area looks straight, even and clean for them to go through, even though there's that crosswalk on the pavement, they're going to be moving faster. And they will move faster until they swing around and hit the parking lot on the other side. So my concern about a sidewalk comes at that area where there are no parking spaces. I'm not sure what you can do there, but I would appreciate it if you would take a look, whether it's a regular paved sidewalk or whether it is a gravel, compacted gravel area of some sort that people can walk along out of the parking area. Otherwise, I don't think we need a sidewalk on the rest of it, but I do worry about that. I echo the compliments of my colleagues in terms of the building. I think it's a very interesting and forward-looking design. I think it does fit, the colors and the design fit with what's already built on Higas Parkway. It complements some of the other buildings, and I think I've said before, I live about half a mile away, so I look forward to lunch and dinner. So thank you.
Thanks, Rachel. Jennifer.
Sorry. Okay. I'll just expand a little bit on one thing that Rachel was just talking about, which was the striped crosswalk there to the front entrance. I'm always a fan of abiding by our, our ordinance, and so, at 10 feet wide, that center island center strip would be a little bit tight to add a full sidewalk there, but I think it could be actually a really great amenity if that had the potential to be widened a little bit to allow maybe, growable, successful grass or other plantings on either side of a sidewalk. At a bare minimum, I strongly feel that the accessible parking spaces should be connected to the building without requiring someone. So again, like thinking of someone in a wheelchair or, whatever, but without requiring them to sort of go out and around that whole end cap with traffic circulating there as well. And that does seem like it would be a pretty short stretch there. It may require having to shift that one light pole a little bit in order to make a connection to the crosswalk that you've shown. But I do think that would be a good, safe addition there. And then just sort of longer term thinking, you know, given whatever a proposed use may be to the adjoining site here, you know, any opportunity that we can take to provide someone walkable facilities between one and the other would be really advantageous. So you're not taking up one of your highly sought after parking spaces just for someone that lives right next door. So, you know, understanding that's a little bit further down the road for you, and you may or may not know what's coming in terms of development specifically or how their driveway aligns, but I can see pedestrian activity at the location where those driveways split being a little bit of a sticky point down the road as well. I was curious about whether or not so the traffic study referenced background information used from the Downs development, but not necessarily from the Three Diamonds Realty next door. So I was just curious about whether or not that had been factored in. And then I'm still curious about the addition of parking spaces. And while I tend to agree on like a functional, you know, the functional end that we do often run into capacity problems parking at restaurants like this around town. I'm curious of how you arrived at the number of proposed parking spaces, like specifically, and then how we're going to deal with the discrepancy between what you're proposing, excuse me, for parking spaces and what the traffic analysis used for trip generation. So what I noticed was that there was quite a lot of dialogue involved comparing the 7th edition and the 10th edition of ITE to arrive at that trip generation number. But what was ultimately recommended by your traffic consultant was a number that was very close to what the town's required parking number is. So she said arrived at an average of 49 trips. Town requires 43 parking spaces, but you're proposing 64. Presumably, if you're proposing 64 spaces, presumably there's going to be more than the calculated number of people arriving at that site. So it's like kind of nerdy traffic math, but I am just sort of curious about it. And it may not even be worth noting, except that the determination of not warranting a left turn lane here was pretty close to the threshold. And so I just, if you do have any follow-up conversations with the traffic consultant, I would be interested in understanding that a little bit better. And our traffic peer reviewer kind of touched on that a little bit, but particularly with the difference between required and proposed parking, I'm just interested in the impact that that may have on trip generation. And what else? I think other than that, the other comments that have been made have.
Thanks, Jen. Todd, do you want to weigh in real quick on the traffic calculation stuff?
Yeah, sure. So one of the things that came about that you could see some of the dialogue with Bill Bray, and he's had conversations with our traffic engineer, Diane Morabito, was that the DOT just came out with a new edition for the trip generation. So they've agreed on using the updated, I believe it's the 10th edition, and they've also agreed on the analysis of the restaurant in terms of high turnover and quality restaurant. Yes, the data originally didn't show the need for a turn lane, and we're going to recalculate those numbers, and we'll give you the update on the follow-up submission. In terms of the parking, I'm not sure that I would think of the two of those together. So her trip generation, that number is just the peak hour for 1 hour of the day, whereas she's just going off counts with the number of seats in the restaurant, also using some of the stuff for the outdoor deck, and just quantifying that with the, you know, the regression analysis, the standard traffic stuff. So yeah, she had come up with originally 50. I'm not sure if that's going to decrease a little bit based on what her and Bill have decided and agreed to. But I think the applicant had noted when we discussed this in February that they actually went around and looked at size of some of the other restaurants in town and looked at the number of spaces in a number of the restaurants, and it seems to match pretty good, just to give us some natural buffer, knowing that we're not going to have any on-street parking and Haggis. I think that we really thought that was going to be a big benefit to having a few additional spaces here above and beyond what was required.
We also have to account for staff, right? Cooks, wait staff, hostess, management.
But normally all of those things are covered under our, both the town and ITE parking generation guidelines. You know, there's factors. It's actually really tricky to calculate parking requirements for restaurants in particular, because there's so many pieces that go into it: staff, wait area, seating area, all those different things. So again, not disputing that you may need additional parking. I'm just curious how, like 64 spaces, I'm just curious how you actually arrived at that that number. And
well, pretty much we wanted to put the building and the parking and minimize the wetlands mitigation, and this is the kind of layout we came up with. And then I said, okay, Todd, now give me the most parking as you possibly can from there, because we knew the issue with the parking that other restaurants were having. And that's really it. There was really no science to it. It was just, how can we maximize the layout and the square footage without going into the wetlands? And that's going to give us the most parking.
And we looked at places like Dunstan Tap and Table, None Such Brewery, that all have between 55 and 65 spaces. And as we know, None Such has 18 spaces that are out on Gorham Road that are more of a traffic hazard. So we're trying to keep with as the minimal impact of the impervious, as well as trying to not get into the wetlands as much, but also give a place where people don't have to fight for a parking spot and will come and enjoy our place, plus give our staff a place to park.
Yeah, so like on a busy Saturday, we'll have an upwards of probably 20 spaces just for staff members. Typically they don't carpool, but in the evenings you'll have a family of 4. They're more likely to carpool. Lunchtime, people are less likely to carpool as well. So we also took that into consideration as well. We're going to be higher staffed in the evenings. More people guests will be carpooling. Lunchtime, we'll have less staff, and then we'll have more guests not carpooling.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Jen, do you have any other follow-up questions?
I don't, I guess, other than just to echo Roger's comments about really taking this kind of to a higher level at the town and ordinance level, just to make sure, like, if we know we're undercutting every single restaurant with our parking requirement, then, I mean, that's frustrating for everybody. It's frustrating for us. It's frustrating for restaurants. It's frustrating for someone that wants to go out for dinner. I guess I am kind of curious in the science of it. So how do we have a town, is the town looking at it from a math standpoint? Do we have an assessment of the existing restaurants and how insufficient their parking is? If not, and you can, provide us a simple write-up maybe of just to that end, the following restaurants that are in similar character, similar size, appear to have an overflow parking need or appear to have X number of spaces extra, or, you know, that type of thing. Because otherwise, just, you know, maximizing, and I understand that you're working within the confines of really the same things that we're looking for too, right? Like limiting wetlands impacts, limiting impervious area, and providing a serviceable amount of parking that will facilitate your business. But to just try and, you know, get the most parking possible without justifying that number is a little bit harder for me. And so just expressing that to you and understanding that it's a frustration for a number of us on the board on a much larger scale than just what you're dealing with. It would be helpful, you know, you could actually go on to help us if you could provide that kind of simple summary. It could potentially go on to help us in justifying a relook at this type of ordinance language, I guess.
Yeah, and Jen, if Nick, if you don't mind, I know one of this has certainly been one of the items that the planning board has talked about for the last few years, and it's something that's on the town's radar or staff's radar to get to as time and resources allow. I think one of the things I just sort of reference, as we often talk about with the parking standards, though we have our minimum parking standards, the ordinance does give the planning board sort of great discretion with regards to particular uses. And so, you know, I don't think in the time that this applicant is before you, staff would be able to pull together that type of analysis. I mean, that's a significant project. So it is certainly on our radar, something we understand we need to get to and would like to get to. But I think right now there's a number of other things that are in the queue, but certainly, hopefully something we can get to in the not too distant future.
Yeah, understood.
Thanks, Jen. Roger?
Yeah, I want to discuss that, but I also want to just make a comment about what Rachel suggested on the sidewalk. And I think Jen also mentioned it too. If I'm not mistaken, I think Rachel suggested a sidewalk on the outside of that curve. And I would just like to suggest, instead of on the outside, because if people are walking from the parking lot, there's a tendency they're going to walk closer to the inner circle than drift to the outside. And I would suggest considering a sidewalk right at the end of the handicap parking spot on either side, tying it in with that sidewalk that goes to the entrance of the building. You see what I'm referring to?
Yeah, right in here.
Yes, but
yeah,
don't have to worry about the light either. Just go from the back end of the handicap spot and just go right along the semicircle to the sidewalk. No, not that one, on the inside.
Okay.
No, right along the edge of the inside circle. There you go, right there, and just go right up to the sidewalk.
Mm-hmm.
Right along, yeah, exactly, right there, and same thing on the other side. Because as people walk from the parking lot, I think there's a tendency they're going to drift towards that island versus drifting out on the other side. This way, you're tying in both the handicap parking, the handicap spots, with a little sidewalk that leads right up to that main sidewalk that leads into the building. Just my thought on that. Versus on the outside. I can see Rachel's thoughts about having a sidewalk there. I just think people will tend to drift towards the middle. They're not gonna walk away. They're gonna go the most direct route to get to the entrance of the building. You know, that's what I'm thinking. And on the whole thing with the parking, I would suggest to the owners, take a look at the table we have, you know, the requirements, the ratios that we have, and just look at those, and you know what you're looking for. Like, for instance, it says one parking lot for 2 employees. Well, I don't think employees carpool. But that's, I'll leave that to you when you come back to try and explain it to Jen and the rest of us, how you came up with this parking scheme. Take a look at that and say, well, this, you know, like a table, we think there's going to be maybe more parking spaces needed for a table than just one. That's just a suggestion as to how to reconcile that. I guess I'm all set.
Thanks, Roger. You know, I'll quickly weigh in. I think, you know, I think Jen's right in saying that this, and Roger as well, have both been kind of advocating that maybe we take another look at our parking ratios in town. And I appreciate Jay saying, you know, yeah, there's a list of other things, including, I suspect, sidewalks that we'd like to have reviewed at some point on a town-wide level. But there is one thing we do know, which is the minimum standard does not work. We have two perfect examples of that in town that are constantly batting parking issues because they came in with designs that allowed for just the minimum. And so we want something that's workable and reasonable. So I think, you know, there's maybe, as Roger suggested, maybe a little bit more background, whether it's, you know, through a calculation table or something would help in the situation. And, you know, and I've always commented on the fact that very few property owners want to invest the additional money to incorporate more paving, more, you know, more expense basically for larger asphalt work and things of that nature, drainage and whatnot. So, you know, I've always kind of deferred to a client knowing what they're going to need as a business because it is more expensive for them to build more parking spaces. That said, I think a little bit more information that you can gather for us going forward would be really helpful. Rachel, I don't know if I got you. Rachel, did I did.
Yeah.
Rick Meinking or Rick Duperi. Rick Meinking. Let's start there.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I won't talk about the parking spots because I'm very strongly feel the same as the chair. The customer or the applicant knows their needs and the cost and everything. So while it is an issue for us as a board to have to always hem and haw on parking spaces, I'm sure when the town has the capability of providing us further guidance, they will do that. In the meantime, I always trying to set up the applicant to have success and not a failure because it would hurt overall the town of Scarborough. So I'm in the camp where let's give you what you need to operate and be successful. The only comment I will make, and I always seem to be the lighting guy, the photometrics is great. I mean, it is well lit. On the parking, I know the ordinance, we really stress on being able to have the capabilities of decreasing the lumen output during, you know, as the night goes on, and the fixture you chose, the Viper S, is really a great fixture for your, you're using a single head in certain areas and a double head in the island area. These also come with a sight sync accessory that actually is very affordable, and you can actually do all the programming right on your smartphone, but it would give you a way that you could actually not worry about timers or photo cells or anything like that. You can just put it on a program of dimming. So I'd strongly suggest you maybe take a look at that additional add-on that those fixtures are capable of having. They have a common portal so that it can communicate with through a smartphone. So I think it's a slick idea. Also, just confirm through maybe one more page on a cut sheet, the two fixtures, your recess fixture and your wall packs, are listed as 3,000 K, but I didn't get a listing on the Viper S, which is the parking lot lights. Just confirm that those are going to be 3,000 K so that you have a uniform color of lighting. That would be super slick. But other than that, I just want to comment on the architecture and what an attractive place this destination could be, and fitting in the Parkway area is just, it would be a really nice amenity for the town, and I applaud you for really taking the time to making this look like a very sustainable and efficient looking building. I trust that the exterior will only be complemented by the interior mechanical systems, which would have the highest of efficiency, and that will again help you with the success of your restaurant and your endeavor. But really nice looking building. That's all.
Thanks, Rick. Rick DePerry?
All right, I like going last just because everybody's already covered most everything. I have one question. I may have missed this in the dialogue, but is that crosswalk from the building to the parking lot, is that a raised as well as striped? Is that a raised walk?
No, it isn't. Actually, that just came about because one of the comments that was made during the master planning, people mentioned just striping out there, even though we didn't put a sidewalk connectivity here to the ADA. That was just more for traffic calming and having some striping across the pavement. So that's flush.
Yeah. As far as the traffic movement in and out of the parking lot, I'm assuming that both those aisles, the top aisle and the bottom aisle, let's call it, are bi-directional. So you can back out and pull out the lower entrance or the upper entrance, depending on whichever way you want to go. I guess what I'm getting to is if we could discourage people from driving over that crosswalk by backing out, or is this a one-way? Are we planning a one-way traffic pattern here?
No, definitely not. This is two-way, but it's set up like that so that there's less people driving in front of the building, that they'll always be able to come in and exit, whether, people that are going down to this lower level can wrap around and then head right back out. So.
Yeah, and I thought that's where we were at with the discussion, but yeah, I mean, if we could, I know there's one road in Westbrook that is actually a nice little road for me to cut through to get to Methodist Road, but they put 3 raised tables on it. Now I avoid it because I don't like driving over those raised tables. And I know it's just a little thing, but it might discourage people from driving in front of the building if they can back out and go the other way. So just a thought. I know Jennifer probably, will comment on that next time if she thinks about it and thinks it's a good idea because she's the traffic girl. But the other thing Rick missed, my friend Rick, what happened to the chargers, Rick? I'm not going to ask for any chargers in this big parking lot. The electric car chargers. Is that a good thought?
The reason being is the nature, you can put a level 2 in, but you got to be there for a while. And I'm sure, and she mentioned she had high table turnover and maximize their profits. So I really didn't think throwing in that expense would do it. I'd rather see chargers where we can get a good charge on an EV. That's the reason I didn't include that.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I just figured, I didn't know if you had thought about it. I should have known you would have.
That's the second thing I look at.
Yeah, I understand. All right, so I guess that's all I have on this one. I do really like the design and the layout, and I think you did a great job. And I look forward to that place opening when we can all actually go out to eat again. That's all I have.
Thanks, Rick. All right. Unless there's any other comments from the board at this time, Todd, are you all set as far as direction for your next submission?
Yeah, just a couple of comments, I guess. Yeah, we're hoping to tighten this up for the next submission. Hopefully get final approval on the next board meeting. One of the things that was mentioned in the staff review was a bike rack and maybe a seat. I looked at some areas in the front, just so you know, that we could do there. I'm going to work with the architect on the front. And then we'll take note of the mention of the sidewalk here. The other thing that was commented on, I was under the impression that the apartments had potentially fell through on the lot to the south, but so I'm not sure exactly what would be constructed over here, but we are going to show the dash line. They'll be able to come in in and out as needed, because there's, you know, plenty of space, plenty of width for whatever is going to go there. Not sure exactly. There's quite a bit of wetlands, very little upland. So we'll see if anything comes to the board for a site plan application. The other thing that was mentioned in the staff review comments, you can see the amount of buffer, and we're adding a lot of plantings. Matt provided a nice photo simulation that you saw earlier right here. One of the comments was maybe providing one from Higas, and I just wanted to get you know, some added clarification on whether that's needed. Our landscape architect went out there and mentioned that, you know, in the summer, this is going to be very well developed. It's probably going to be the most hidden building on Higas Parkway. And I wasn't sure if that was really necessary to give you an angle from Higas of what that building would look like, because I think we'd just be looking at a photo simulation with trees. So I just wanted to get clarification of whether we really felt that was necessary for the next submission.
Thanks. I mean, I'm comfortable with what I'm seeing at this point. I don't know if anyone else wants to jump in. Jamel, do you want to clarify that at all for us?
Yeah, sure. So it's in the zoning ordinance that all development within the Higas Parkway should be depicted as seen from the public way. But if the scale or, you know, unique development doesn't warrant it, and the planning board doesn't have to require it. I just wanted to mention that it is a standard that the board typically looks to, but again, you know, based on the characteristics of the site, the board can decide that it's not necessary.
Thanks, Jamel. Any board members feel strongly we need the picture of the trees? I mean, I know the salt pump, you can't see the salt pump real well either. So Rachel?
Yeah, I think I was the one that originally talked about that when there was a question about whether the utility lines were going to have to go down and come onto the site from the access road, from the driveway, rather than directly across. And my suggestion was that you just take a couple of pictures so that we would have a sense of what that coverage looked like. And
do you feel a couple of pictures could, and the rest of the board, a couple of pictures will do it?
I think that's all that's necessary, just to make sure. And now that the leaves are coming out, certainly we would be able to get a good idea about the screening in the spring and the summer and into the fall, and in the winter, you know, we get a lot of visibility. We understand that the leaves are gone and a lot of buildings are visible, but it just seemed to me to be a way to assure the board that there was adequate screening already, rather than, you need to add something more. So my suggestion was a couple of pictures from the road. Take your cell phone out and show us what it looks like facing where the building would be, and that would satisfy me, I believe.
Thanks, Rachel. I'd agree. Just a photo. I don't think you need anything too elaborate there. It's also, in my opinion, a shame to hide such an attractive building, but that is what it is.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't have any suggestions, but and I also understand that, like, we can't allow a sign like that to be in the right of way, but I really feel for you in having that requirement have to pull back your signage and lighting at your driveway. I don't know how you'll overcome that, but I agree that this could really become like a gem in disguise. And I know that's, you know, you'd probably prefer like great visibility and big signage and stuff like that. I just feel for you, that's all.
Does that mean that we can apply for a waiver then?
Are you looking to add another 3 weeks to this?
I have time.
You can always apply and then, you know, take your time.
Unfortunately, that's not one that there's a variance that's eligible for. We've had that discussion as these come along. We understand sort of the trials, but should also mention that that is a right of way owned by DOT as well. So there'd be a lot to go into making modifications to the current ordinances. But we do appreciate staff understands the issues. You know, the town this is the one zone in which we have a 0 foot setback. Again, still doesn't make the sign jump out, but I think that's the parameters that we have to work with.
Yeah, and speaking of that, yeah, we did show the sign in the light, hoping to get it out a little more visibility with Higas, but I can bump down this island a little bit because this is 30 feet. So I'm going to draw this down and we're going to put the sign in the light right in this area. So it'll be on private property with 0 setback. And yes, it is a shame to have to try and hide this building, but we did take some pains with the landscape architect to save as much of the trees as you guys mentioned in February. And then we replanted some lower plantings, lower profile plantings up front, some trees in back in the areas where the utilities are. So should provide some pretty good buffer, and we'll get a couple of photos. One other question that I did have was on the, we were unaware of the multimodal reserve account to pay in for a potential future sidewalk along Higas. And we were just curious how that came about and whether someone like a Foley's already paid into that, or if anybody else has, or what is the plan there?
I'm gonna kick that question over to Jay. My memory serves me. I think Foley's did, but maybe Jay or Jamel.
Yeah, sure. As I recollect, Foley's did as well, and that's probably a detail that Jamel can remember better than I. But this goes to the site plan standards for sort of pedestrian ways, and the recognition that currently there aren't any sidewalks along the Higas Parkway. And so rather than having sort of one piece of a sidewalk sort of stand there for an undetermined amount of time, it's really the town, probably 3 to 4 years ago, established the multimodal reserve account, in which rather than having a developer sort of build a piece that may ultimately not be in the right location because there hasn't been sort of the fully vetted plan, could be then basically paid forward, if you will, towards a future development of sidewalk or pedestrian, or I actually should say to multimodal, because it could be used for other purposes as well.
How is that number determined, and how much is that? Because that's a question I raised months, now a year ago, on how that would work.
I think I'll ask Angela to weigh in on how the value is determined.
When do we know? When do we find out what that value is?
Yep.
Oh, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can, Angela.
Okay, good. That number is determined by your frontage and the linear footage of your frontage. And we look at what it would cost to build a sidewalk. So that typically comes from the applicant's engineer, and we review it and make sure it makes sense. But each parcel is a little different. So I guess that's where we look at it. I can come up with kind of a rule of thumb. We're trying to get a little more specific, just so, because what's been happening in the past is that when I give $1 per linear foot, it's not enough for anyone to build a sidewalk. We've been pretty low in that number. And so it'd make more sense to start a conversation with how much would it cost for you guys to build that sidewalk, and instead not build it, but it would be, a wash. It would be equal amount. And that's something that would come from Todd and that we would review internally.
Yeah, I guess I can follow up with you on that, Angela,
okay,
on how you've done it in the past, because obviously designing that, whether it's along the edge of Higas is one thing, or if you're bringing in fill and it's separated from the edge of pavement, could create more of an expense. So I'm happy to follow up with you outside of this meeting to.
I can say that for past projects, because this is a very frequent thing, that we have used a threshold of $25 per linear foot. What we've been asked to do as staff is to really vet that number, because it's coming in so low that we are not able to build a lot of the sidewalk. So it's really, we've been tasked through the Transportation Committee to look at that more closely.
How many times about expanding sidewalk?
Even though this isn't a town-owned road. Does the DOT have a say or any input?
All right, are there any other questions, Todd or staff, before you guys head off to try to wrap this up?
I think that's everything I had. Hopefully, resubmitting and looking for final site plan approval at the next meeting, hopefully.
All right, thank you very much. It's a great looking project. Look forward to seeing it again.
Great, thank you.
Next item on our agenda tonight is 98 Payne Road LLC requests a site plan review for 289 Payne Road, Assessor's Map R52, Lot 4A. Jamil?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This project's also located in the Highgate Parkway zoning district along Payne Road this time, directly across from the Ginn Road intersection with Payne Road. As you may recall, the applicant was granted master plan approval back in December 2019, and the applicant's proposing a 13,450 square foot building that will consist of up to 6 storefronts for retail purposes. As you may recall, the town's public safety departments had expressed some concerns about the once proposed full access driveway as depicted on the master plan materials. Since then, the applicant's team and town staff have met to discuss various site access designs. And as a result, the applicant's now proposing 2 driveways along Payne Road, one enter only and one exit only, as you can see on the plans there. So the applicant should be sure to discuss this updated design with the board this evening. Staff did provide a few comments related to internal vehicular circulation, including the addition of some wayfinding signage, some pavement markings, and the possible narrowing of the one-way enter-only driveway to help slow down vehicular traffic. And there also appears to be several areas within the site where a town fire truck may hit a curb. So staff suggested mountable curbing where that was occurring. The applicant did provide some building elevations and detailed floor plans, and staff has recommended that the applicant add some windows along the southern elevation of the building, given its visibility from the enter-only driveway and Payne Road, and to just try and match the other elevations on the building. And then given that the zoning and site plan standards within planned developments require walkable, pedestrian-oriented developments, staff has recommended a pedestrian gathering or seating area adjacent to the northernmost entrance to the building, near the landscape area and where the sidewalks kind of intersect there by the parking area. And at this point, I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Jamel. Mr. Frank?
Oh, excuse me.
Hi, Sean.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can.
Thank you. Sean Frank with Sebago Technics. With me tonight is Mark Loring, the applicant, and I believe Matt Orr. I think he's having some audio issues. An associate of mine is also with us here tonight. This is a project I know the board's seen numerous times. I know you have a full agenda, Mr. Chairman, so I'll just try to hit the highlights. Jamel, I think, hit on the most significant aspect of the change, which was working through staff with the traffic review engineer as well as public safety. And in terms of rather than the full access driveway at the intersection of Ginn Road, to revise that such that we have just an entrance drive at that intersection with Ginn Road, and then a second driveway, which is exit only on the northerly side of the site. As part of that, we do have to create a left turn lane that's along Payne Road with the associated offsite. We did send that plan to DOT just to make sure that they were comfortable with the proposal. We did get their sign off, at least in terms of the concept. Obviously, we would be requesting from the board tonight, hopefully requesting a site plan approval, obviously with the understanding that we couldn't get the occupancy until we had the final plans approved by DOT and the actual offsite improvements constructed accordingly. We are in receipt of the staff review comments. The only thing I had with the 20-foot driveway is the fact that we do have curbs on both sides of the driveway. So in terms of narrowing that up and having a shoulder, the shoulder would be somewhat ineffective. And the other part of that obviously is if in fact they ever do signalize that intersection, as you might have saw from Mr. Bray's comments, the fact is that we would be losing the northerly drive and that would be the full access down through there again. So we would be looking at improving that at some point. So again, 20 feet, I don't know, going down to 16 makes a big difference from that standpoint. Again, from the fire access, they always push the 20 feet. So that's why I think we kind of started with the 20. In terms of the curbing itself, having a slope curb over the majority of the site is no issue at all, except obviously where we have the sidewalks and the curb abutting the building. Obviously, we'd anticipate vertical curbing within that area, just from the cars and the pedestrians type of thing. Jamel did mention a couple of windows along the southerly side of the building, some additional low landscaping around the transformer pad, which again, we certainly have no issues with. I think we did discuss, I thought, with the board last time about, some pedestrian, off-site pedestrian stuff. Again, we just didn't see a big need for it. We didn't see it really being utilized, to be perfectly honest with you, off to the back of the building. I certainly don't see customers or clients going out to the back to kind of utilize that stuff. So maybe perhaps more for employees rather than making it a requirement. Perhaps, obviously, if we can work with the potential tenants, if that becomes something that they'd like to utilize. Again, as you can understand, we have a sidewalk impact, we have off-site traffic impacts, as well as building the left turn lane associated with this. Obviously, we're not, its cost obviously is starting to become just a little bit of a concern for us as well. The back parking lot, as you may recall, we had a double row, a double set of parking originally. As you may recall, when we started this process, we were looking at a potential restaurant, which really led to the second parking. Then we kind of lost the first lane of parking. Obviously now with the additional driveway to offset that impervious area and to get the number of parking closer to what's required by ordinance. Now we just basically lost that whole second parking area. The architecture, I think, is we did have Port City Architecture pull together some firm plans. Thank you, Jamel. And Jamel was good enough to I still have my old-fashioned 11-inch computer, so I really can't see these things too well. But from a color scheme, you can see the brick is on the bottom. As you're working your way up, those are clapboards that are going to be probably like an earth tone. The top peaks would be white with black lettering for the signage, and then black asphalt shingles is what we expect. Again, the front will have the sidewalk, like I say, with the vertical curbing and associated with it. Mr. Chairman, I think we're comfortable with everything else. We see these as mostly cleanup items. Certainly would appreciate, again, we've appreciated staff time in the past. They did spend quite a bit of time with us in terms of coming up with an acceptable traffic solution. We would certainly anticipate that it'd be a relatively straightforward process to just kind of clean up some of the minor details associated with this. We would request final approval with conditions if appropriate from the planning board tonight, and would certainly be happy to answer any questions the board has. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Sean. Appreciate it. We do have an opportunity for public comment. If you are here in attendance and are looking to speak on this item, please find the raise your hand button on the Zoom feature. All right. Currently don't see anyone with their hand raised. I will turn it over to the board. I'm just going to throw this out at general. Seems to be kind of just, as Mr. Frank may have indicated, some cleanup. We have seen this plan several times. Do we have any specific questions from the board members? Just go ahead and raise your hand for me if you want to ask a question. Roger.
Yeah, Sean, when this was before the board previously, the larger unit, the 42, I think it's 4,200 square feet, that was being designed as a restaurant. Could that still function as a restaurant with the reduced parking area, or is that pretty much eliminated?
No, Roger, it wouldn't. The parking wouldn't meet the parking requirements, and again, a lot of the interior things aren't part of it now either. The grease trap that would have been outside. And I think that was probably as part of our sketch, Roger, when we really started on this. I think by the time we get to the master plan that Jamel mentioned, what was that in December, Jamel, you said, December, January? I think by the time we get to that, we had pretty much given up on the restaurant at that point in time. It was just from a lot of different things, the traffic impact associated with it, the work inside and how much work was required to kind of create the interior space associated with it. And again, all the parking that we were talking about. So this is just going to be retail space, retail professional office. What we seem to be getting interest in right now, it seems, is the professional services, dentists and eye doctors and those types of things. So based upon that, we think we can be very comfortable with the proposed parking that's here. We do think it'll be sufficient. And obviously, if there would be a change for that space to come back to restaurant, it would have to come back to the planning.
Okay, just kind of curious. Thank you. I'm all set with everything else.
Thanks, Roger.
If I could jump in, there's a few items on the draft motion that I think are worth discussing. The first one is staff's suggestion to reduce the width of the enter-only driveway. I think staff made an error in the staff comments, and the idea now is to do a 16-foot wide one-way consisting of subgrade materials that can support a ladder truck 2 feet outside of the mountable curbing. So there would be curbing with a 16-foot driveway that would be mountable, so a fire truck could utilize it. And then the second item I think the board should weigh in on would be the pedestrian gathering area. If that's something that is not, the board's not interested in requiring, then that can also be taken out as well. I just wanted to note that.
Thanks, Jamel. So with the, Sean, can you go back? I know you mentioned the fire department typically wants the 20-foot.
Yeah, I guess, and maybe I'm missing up on my towns, but as you know, maybe I'm living in South Portland right now rather than Scarborough. But it always seems like we always wanted a 20-foot wide fire access road. So that's why I think we started with that. Again, 16, I appreciate from a speed, but again, I don't know if I see a ton of speed coming in here. It's going to be a right turn, left turn coming in. You mount curb on gravel, and then basically we're going to have to fill up behind the curb with, something. Because I'm going to have a curb that's sitting up off the gravel at that point. So, and then the gradiness, I don't know. It just seems, it seems like at some point we're just working pretty hard for very little gain at that point to me. I don't see 20 feet versus 16 as being, a huge difference. It just seems, again, from our standpoint, 20 feet, I think it seems more acceptable. Obviously, we'll go with the board on that. Again, the other part of that is, obviously, any work that's associated with, if in fact that Ginn Road intersection becomes a full signalized intersection, and we're talking about, even more work going on out through there. So, again, Mr. Chairman, I think it just seemed to us, to put a curb now, or to put a curb on gravel and then, fill up behind the back of the curb, just seems like a lot of work for very little gain from my.
All right, thanks, Sean. Rachel?
Yeah, I would like to put in a pitch for the bench in the gathering area in the back, especially if this is going to be much more for doctor's offices. Sometimes the person who drives the patient there might just want to sit out in the fresh air. So it would be helpful to just simply start off with a gathering place there. And I don't think more than a bench would be necessary, but I think a bench out there would be very helpful.
Thanks, Rachel. Roger?
I'm inclined to rely on the occupants of the building to determine whether they think they need something like that. Because it seems to me that if the occupants of the building see that there's a demand or a preference for something like that, they would be inclined to do it, whether it's the employees who want to sit outside for whatever reason or whatever. But to require them to have a space like that may never be used, I don't know. I would prefer to let the occupants of the particular units make that determination. And just to weigh in on the other thing, I hate to disagree with staff, but I don't know, I can see Sean's reasoning behind that. Maybe Jamal could explain it a little bit, or Angela could explain it a little bit more why the staff prefers the 16-foot wide entrance there, roadway there. I see that smile, Angela.
I could jump in if you want, Mr.
I was
Chair.
waiting for Jamel.
Yeah, I
Which
mean, a typical travel lane is 11 to 12 feet wide on a roadway, and we see 20 feet as it's wider than what vehicles are used to, and the wider the road, the faster the vehicles will move. But this is at the direction of the board, so it's just a suggestion. I don't know if Angela wants to jump in or not, but
Yeah, I think they were just looking at it, talking with Jamel about it looking like a two-way, and how do you resolve that? And maybe that means additional striping on the surface or things like that. I know the fire department did weigh in, because as Sean said, every fire department, I will say, wants 20 feet. That's probably every town. But they are willing to go to that 16, and just making sure you can drive over the curb. And when you're talking about behind the curb, it was really just looking at, having 4 inches of loam still and seed on top, so you have grass, and so you would never know any different than a 16-foot wide road. However, the fire department knows that they drive down over, they're not going to sink into oblivion, so that was the only difference, and so that's what they had requested, so that they can drive up over it. And again, it's really up to the board on which way you want to go with that.
And if I might just sort of add, I think to build off what Angela said, where it is a one-way, where it's an entrance only, really trying to just make sure that the plans and what people see really sort of represent that they shouldn't be headed out at the Ginn Road intersection towards the one-way. And so having a little bit more narrowed down might make people realize, there's something different happening here than, as I think was already mentioned, the 20-foot wide sort of standard looks like, oh, this is where I'm supposed to go.
Mr. Chairman, if I can add in, okay, I'm starting to be dragged into it. Okay, no, I can appreciate that. I can see where they're coming from now. I really can. I can see, okay, to kind of define it more as just a one-way rather than a two-way.
So Sean, am I hearing you saying you agree to go to a 16-foot with the mountable curb?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Does anyone on the board have any other thoughts on the placemaking? I mean, I gotta believe, Sean, you probably could throw a picnic table out in the back, right?
Yeah, exactly. If we're talking a picnic table or a couple of benches, I think we're comfortable with that. I think there'd been charged about a canopy perhaps. It just seemed, but yes, certainly a couple of benches or.
Okay.
Could we throw in one bench and maybe a double level 2 charger and call it good?
Where are we now?
One bench and a level 2 charger for an electric vehicle. You can put one right by one of your outside pole lights there. You can run the conduit and everything while you're putting in the parking lot. Be perfect.
I
have to buy one bench.
One bench, but what are you saying? One of those is pretty much the same price as a bench? I have no
Depends
idea.
on how good of a shopper you are.
Yeah, the only reason I'm asking, I have no idea what we're talking about. I hate to be spending my time.
Well, we're saving you money on the 16-foot wide road, right? So we'll pick up the extra and we'll throw a charger in. Your doctor will appreciate that when he rents your suite.
One bench and one charger.
Are we done horse trading, folks?
It sounds that way.
All right. Without seeing any other comments, I do have a draft motion here.
Nick,
going
if I could
to
jump in.
Yes.
I'm just gonna wordsmith right here, and then share my motion if you give me 1 second, all right?
Okay,
Sorry.
you might want to hurry. Sean might find himself buying something else here shortly.
Yes, please hurry.
All right.
Jamal, Jay and Jamal, do you have a Mark Loring there available? On
I just figured it out, Sean.
Thank you. There he is.
I've been on all night.
Mark
My assistant, my child, was not helping. I apologize.
Mark, are you good with everything?
Yes, I am, Sean.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think we're good with everything.
We are going to get a little edited version of our motion, and then we'll move forward with it.
Can you guys see that?
No, I can't. I mean, I can see it. I don't know if I can read it.
I can zoom in.
Okay, that's better. Here we go. I move to approve the site plan project titled Payne Road Crossing as depicted on the plan set prepared by Sebago Technics dated 4/27/20 with the following findings and conditions. Findings. The applicant is proposing to construct a 13,220 square foot single-story building that will consist of up to 6 storefronts for retail purposes. The proposal also includes 57 parking spaces and stormwater management infrastructure. The proposal is located at 289 Payne Road and will utilize existing frontage. Property is located within the Higas Parkway HP zoning district. Planning board has reviewed the application and supporting documentation and finds that the proposed design of the site plan adequately addresses the site plan review and zoning ordinance requirements for the site utilization and layout, access, internal vehicular movement, parking, pedestrian ways, landscaping, stormwater management, lighting, architecture, signage, utilities, and storage. Conditions. Number 1, prior to the issuance of a building permit, the applicant shall revise the plan set to include a 16-foot wide one-way driveway consisting of subgrade materials that could support a 40-foot long ladder truck 2 feet outside of Cape Cod mountable curbing. B, a do not enter pavement marking where the enter-only driveway intersects the western parking area. C, an exit-only sign where the northern driveway intersects Payne Road. D, a pedestrian gathering area adjacent to the main entrance of the northernmost tenant area as noted in the staff review memo dated 5/11/20. E, an electric vehicle charger as discussed with the planning board. F, a wooden guardrail as associated detail along the northern driveway. G, revise the curbing detail to depict a Cape Cod style curb. H, additional screening provisions adjacent to the proposed transformer on the property. I, a plan note indicating when the wetland delineation was completed on the property. J, the standard chapter 419 plan note. This shall be reviewed and approved by the planning department. 2, prior to the issuance of a building permit, the applicant shall A, pay the traffic impact fees, B, pay the in lieu fee in the amount equal to the estimated construction of a sidewalk along Payne Road street frontage. Funds are to be directed to the town's multimodal reserve account. C, address traffic review comments and traffic solutions memo dated 5/6/20. D, address the review comments in Woodard and Curran's memo dated 5/7/20. E, address the remaining comments in staff review memo dated 5/11/20. F, provide approval by the Maine DOT for the proposed driveways and offsite improvements associated with the project. D, coordinate with the fire department in regards to turning movements and access. H, revise the building elevations as noted in the staff review memo dated 5/11/20. This shall be reviewed and approved by the planning department. 3, prior relations of a building permit for each tenant fit up, the applicant shall provide updated trip generation numbers for review and approval by the town. Trip exceeds approved volumes for peak hour, the revised traffic analysis is to be completed and any necessary state permits secured and or offsite improvements identified in the analysis will need to be completed as approved by the town prior to the issuance of the certificate of occupancy. Statement above should be added to the site plan notes. 4, if under future conditions, warrants for a traffic signal are met at the Payne Road, Gin Road intersection and the signal is installed, the northern driveway shall be removed and a full access driveway in this location shall be constructed by the applicant. The applicant shall also provide planting and other landscaping provisions where the northern driveway is currently proposed. This shall be reviewed and approved by the planning department. 5, prior to issuance of a sign permit, the applicant shall provide a final signage plan. This shall be reviewed and approved by the planning department. 6, prior to the start of construction, a pre-construction meeting is required. The meeting shall include appropriate town staff, the developer, and their site contractor, and is to be coordinated through the planning department. Scroll down some more for me, Jamal. Oh, that's all. Okay. That is the motion.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Frank, everything you heard in there? Sound
Yes, sir.
appropriate?
We're fine with that. Thank you.
All right. Seeing no discussion, we'll take a vote. I'm going to do a roll call. Okay. Rick Minking. I'm sorry, Rick, you're an alternate with
Right.
Rick DePerry. Rick DePerry.
I'm sorry, I'm on mute. I'm good. Yeah, I agree.
That's a yes. Roger Beely,
Yes.
Rachel Hendrickson,
Yes.
Jennifer Ladd,
Yes.
Nick McGee. Yes, thank you. Congratulations and good luck to you, Sean.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you all.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Good work.
Next item on tonight's agenda. Joy Real Estate of Scarborough 2 LLC requests a site plan amendment for 424 Payne Road, Assessor's Map R38, Lot 11. Jamel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this project's also located on Payne Road at the corner of Payne and Gorham Road and is in the Regional Business or B2 zoning district. So the applicant's proposing to construct several building additions totaling almost 7,000 square feet to the existing building on the property to serve as a dental office. Staff would like to note that a full stormwater review has not been completed by the town's staff or civil peer reviewer due to missing information in the packet. Information related to the proposed increase in impervious area, disturbed area, and the adequacy of the existing infrastructure on the site to manage the runoff will need to be included with future submissions to the board. Staff has also recommended that the applicant modify the design of the existing driveways where they intersect Roundwood Drive to include additional curbing to help square up these intersections with the intention of slowing down traffic entering and exiting the site. And finally, staff has recommended that the applicant include several benches on the property between the pond, the existing pond, and the proposed walkway and building, as this would help to provide employees and visitors a place to enjoy this natural feature on the property. At this point, I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Jamel. And for the applicant, please introduce yourself and the project.
Hi, thank you. Sashi Meisner with Gowan Turgeon Architects, landscape architect. And with me, I have Tom Hennigan from Ransom Consulting, who is a civil engineer. And the owner may be on board. I'm not exactly sure.
Sashi, what name should I be looking for? I'm the one who's able to bring people up and
Jin,
down.
Jin Huang.
Yeah, I thought.
J-I-N.
I'm not seeing that name on my list here. So.
Okay. He may just be observing. I'm not exactly sure, but he said he might attend. So I'll go ahead and share my screen. So we're here because the owner would like to convert the existing building, the New England Hi-Fi building, into a dentist office. He has a couple of offices in southern Maine and he's expanding. So this is hopefully going to be his new site. I'm sure you're all familiar with this building. It's located at 424 Payne Road, a corner of Gorham Road and Payne Road. So it's a high profile site. It is, as you can see from the existing conditions here, the site, the contours, it's much lower from Gorham Road and Payne Road than is. We have about 10 feet of elevation, 10 to 15 feet of elevation change from Gorham Road in this corner of Payne Road. So it is somewhat sunk down at the intersection, and then it is more visible as you round around towards the Roundwood Drive and this area of Payne Road. The building is, it used to be New England Hi-Fi. It's been closed now for a year or so, but it was built in 1984. There's been a few additions, so the building is somewhat, you can see from the aerial that it looks like it's parts and pieces kind of cobbled together. It's kind of a unique building design. So the property is accessed from Roundwood Drive, but it's not part of the Roundwood subdivision. It has, although it has a few easements tied to the subdivision. Zoom in here. So we have the large directory sign. There's an easement for that. We have a landscaped easement for the stone wall and Roundwood sign and landscaping treatment right there. And then there's a 100-foot view easement that extends all the way across 100 feet offset from this, from their property line along Payne Road. And that's a view easement that's tied to this property right here that says that they cannot plant any trees within this area. So it's somewhat interesting. They do have, so there's some signs on the site. There's the directory sign and the New England Hi-Fi sign is located right here. There's an identification sign for the Roundwood subdivision at the intersection here. This directory sign will count as one of their freestanding signs. So they'll then be limited to just one sign that references their building specifically. And there's another identification sign right here for the subdivision. The property is served by all public utilities, of course. We have electric that comes from Gorham Road to a utility pole right here, and then is underground to the building. We're going to keep a similar approach with underground to the building from a pole with the necessary upgrades as we determine what's needed on the inside of the building. Water is accessed from Gorham Road. This is, we believe, the domestic service line right now. So we'll bring a new domestic service line from this point, as well as a sprinkler line. Oh, the sewer line comes from Payne Road. We have spoken with the sanitary district and they're fine with reusing the existing line. And we've gotten our unofficial approval of this use. Unitil comes off of Roundwood Drive. So gas line comes through here. We will be using a gas service from this location, potentially reusing this one. We don't know exactly until we do some test bits and find out what the condition is and if we can reuse it. There is a water line that comes through here that you can see. We believe this is a sprinkler service that was tied to this portion of the building that I think was a car detailing service that required having a sprinkler. So only a portion of the existing building is sprinkled. And we will be, of course, sprinkling the whole thing. We did meet with the fire department and they saw no issue with what we were proposing. So I just included a few photographs. I'm sure you're all pretty familiar with it, so I'll go through these quickly, but these are some of the things that we had just talked about on the aerial. So this is the landscape easement for the Roundwood sign. There's the sign easement for this directory sign. Notice we have, of course, overhead utilities that we've taken into consideration. This is the first entrance into the main customer parking area. One thing to note is just that there is a significant grade change from Gorham Road. So visibility from that end of the site is really mostly the roof and not so much of the building. There are existing trees and vegetation on site. Some of the trees are not in great condition, so we are proposing to remove a good bit of them and put new trees on site with more of a general overall design for the landscape instead of this what's on site is more haphazard. So we're looking to kind of create this whole unified design that would kind of fit with some of the adjacent properties on the in this neighborhood. This is a view looking down towards Payne Road from the second driveway entrance. You can see there is a nice existing tree that we will be keeping. And then this shows the pond. So there's a lot of kind of overgrown vegetation, shrubs and things like that along the pond. We're gonna just pick and choose what we can reuse from the site. Some of them I think are all right. They just need some heavy pruning and cutting back. Some of the trees might not be in great condition. We're kind of waiting to evaluate everything this spring to see how it's looking to decide what plan of attack we're going to take with the vegetation around the pond. Here is the access into the second entrance drive. And what I really like about this entrance is that it has some great existing trees from the adjacent property that kind of we're able to, use for this entrance. Some great birches, and I'm not sure what this is, but then some smaller trees, and they really kind of shape the entrance drive. So that is a nice element that we're able to steal from the adjacent property. This is a view from Gorham Road, and again, the elevation, we're a little bit higher here. So the view really is, your eyes are drawn to the top of the building. This is the pole that's existing. And just note that one of the things that we really wanted to do architecturally was give this side, even though it's kind of sunk down, we wanted to give this side of the street a presence along the road, so that when you look at the architecture drawings, it's really, that was one of the driving forces in the changes that we made along this side of the building. We are proposing to keep this evergreen tree. This is a view as you round around Payne Road in your first view to the front of the building. Another thing to note architecturally is that while this is the front of the building, you really only have this little portion that has kind of a presence. That you have a long face here that doesn't have any windows and is a lot of roof. So architecturally, we were trying to change that. So this really has the street presence along Payne Road as well. And then this is just the view from the back of the property. This is Gorham Road up here. So it just shows kind of the existing vegetation, the utility pole, and the view back. So this is our layout plan, and I've overlaid it on the aerial so that you can see the changes that are being made. The overall intent for the design was really efficiency. So looking at the building and only adding where we needed to add to make an efficient layout for the use that it was going to be. We really wanted to focus on the aesthetics of the site. It's a really prominent site, and I think it's lacking in interest and character that would kind of tie itself with the surrounding neighborhood. So those were the kind of the biggest pieces that we were looking at. So the grade areas, the blue is the existing roof line. And then these grade portions are the portions that we've added to the building. We added a small mechanical room on this side. We had an addition here to provide some lab space. We filled in this area to give the proper metrics for the treatment rooms and the access aisle needed. And then this is additional treatment rooms as well as office space. The main entrance would be in the front of the building. So this parking here would be primarily for patient parking. Parking in the back would be for employees, as well as patients could park there. There may be an additional office treatment room in here that could be accessed from this point. We're still figuring whether the owner is going to do that or not. We had this nice little L that was created with the building. So we made a area with pavers and tables, and thinking of employee seating There's a little stone wall here. So this is a real nice social space. It's full sun. So there's some trees for shade, and umbrellas and things like that would be part of the patio area. These walkways, this is for employees only. This would be employee only. This would be a public entrance. And these two would either be egress or employee. And this is just for the mechanical room. We have 54 spaces required, and we're showing 58 spaces. We have our lighting, photometrics plan was included. We're just mostly pole mounted lighting and some building lighting. These will be on a shut off dimmer for nighttime. We have our dumpster in the back here. We didn't initially screen it with a fence because all of this area is really well hidden by the topography and the existing vegetation, but we certainly can screen it if that is desired. You can see the areas of pavement that we're removing. So this is pavement that's coming out, adding a little bit of pavement here, and adding pavement here and removing some of the pavement here, really kind of creating a more streamlined parking area and more attractive, hopefully. This is the floor plan, so you can see the hatched areas are building additions. And there is a small second floor space for employees. It would be a locker rooms or some sort of employee space only. And then a little cupola. And these are the renderings that we're working with right now. It would be moving from the blue metal roof. We're going to get rid of that one and change it to asphalt shingles. We have a dark gray siding with a stone veneer base and white trim. So it'll look a little different. This is the view from the southern side. So the view along Brownwood Drive, you can see a little bit of the pond there. None of the smaller plant material is shown, no shrubs or perennials, but this would be really all full of shrubs and perennials and quite nice. Then this is the side from Gorham Road. So you can see that we've kind of animated this roof a little bit with a dormer. We've created the gable roof, and this is being 2-story will be a little bit more visible on this side, and added lots of windows. So you will have a presence along that side that you don't have right now. And this is the landscape plan. So the idea was to focus on views into the space, but also think about the people that are in the office themselves and their views outside the windows. So we were looking at the view from the windows in here and creating interesting plantings along this side that would be visible. Lots of plantings in here. So all these windows have great views into that space. And then plantings along the perimeter here of the building. I imagine that this area would grow back once the pavement's removed. But right now we're just showing it as lawn, and some getting a real nice street tree presence along the frontage. We've stepped them back a little bit to keep them out of the power lines that are there on both sides. The sign this is the line, the setback line for the sign to be the distance away from this sign. So this is where we're proposing the new sign, and we don't have that design yet, but we would get that to you soon. And it would be nicely landscaped with shrubs and perennials. And I can just touch on some of the comments. I mean, I guess one other thing was overall grading, we tried not to impact the site too much. The stormwater, we kept all of the conditions the same, and we will submit the full stormwater report with our responses. And then I can just touch on the comments that we received about the driveway entrances. So we did look at these. The staff comment was to tighten the entrances up a little bit so that people aren't speeding through here. We looked at the first entrance and we didn't really see that there would be a lot of fast movement into there because you're only about less than 100 feet from when you turn off of Payne Road. You haven't really picked up much speed at that point. And this is a 25-foot radius, so we felt like that was not inappropriate and that was working well. We do realize that this one is a bit wider than standard, and we did look at tightening it up a little bit. So here's one option which I like, and I think it works all right, and that's kind of going with the existing curve of the drive and bringing it down and cutting off some of that width. It squares it off a bit, and that's a 35-foot radius. We did also look at even tighter, so a 25-foot radius, which kind of brings it right down and squares it off. I thought this one was a little bit awkward, but you know, I think it would still work. We do have a dump, the dumpster is located over here, so we would have trucks going in here at times. So that's what we would like some guidance on, which approach you would prefer. There was discussion about, or comment about adding benches along here for seating. Our initial thoughts on that are to kind of wait and see whether it's needed. We are open to and have thought about putting some informal seating in here, like boulders that are level, that would be a little bit more, someone could come down and sit closer to the water if they wanted, but it wasn't a formal bench seating. We're offering a lot of great seating here for staff, and I guess I'm not sure how much that would get used, and we would prefer to kind of wait and see how that works. The comment to add plant material in here, the owner has other properties where he has dentist office and deals with snow in the wintertime. His preference is to not have a landscaped area in the middle of his parking lot, just to make the plowing easier and not have it get all beat up in the wintertime. We do feel like we have a good amount of planting around the outside edge, as well as the existing plant material that we're keeping here, and then additional plantings here. So that would be his preference, to not plant that. We do have, most of our walkways are 4 feet or 5 feet. We did go down to the ADA minimum of 3 feet for the walkways that are only served by the mechanical room and employees. My understanding was that 3 foot was the minimum for ADA. We could do 4 if that was desired, but we were kind of looking to show a hierarchy of pathway widths so that you know, you just knew which ones were the main ones and which ones were secondary ones. And then the comment for planting trees along the entrance drive, we did consider that, but we were following the view easement. We did add trees as soon as we got beyond that. And I think there are enough trees here, but we're limited on where we can put those trees on the entrance drives. So with that, I'll open it up, and Tom is here if there's any civil questions.
Thank you. So we have an opportunity for public comment on this item. If there's anyone here in attendance that wants to discuss this, please use the raise my hand feature on your Zoom panel. All right, seeing none, I'll just open this up to the board, just in general. I think the presentation was pretty thorough. I think by and large, the plan is a nice improvement. I did have one question, and it was probably smaller in nature. The elevations were showing 2 signs, and I wanted to know if there's one like on top of the cupola, I believe, and then there's also one on the building. And I didn't know if that was meeting sign ordinance. I'm not sure staff had picked up on it, if that's getting really into the nitty-gritty at this point. But that was one thing I saw. I think the 35-foot radius looked nice on the drive. I agree with staff. I think that water feature is beautiful, and a bench or 2 out there really wouldn't hurt you, or even just a picnic table. Somebody might want to sit near that water and enjoy it. Those are my initial thoughts going in. If anyone else from the board would like to just throw a couple thoughts out there, have at it. Roger.
I actually took a ride out there the other day and to take a look at, I drove in both driveways. And this is going to be such a vast improvement over that current structure. I mean, that's almost like a signature building as you go into Roundwood. And this is going to be such a big improvement. I want to just weigh in on, I like the idea of a lot of lawn area. I know there's a tendency that people want to put buffering everywhere, but I think this really looks nice on the corner with a nice landscape lawn area to give you as much exposure of the building as possible. I think the building looks terrific. I would agree with the 35% curvature on the driveway. Regarding the pond, that pond looks kind of shabby right now when you drive in there. But I do think you have a good point of trying to preserve some of the current shrubs and everything that's there. And I think that will help define the entranceways as well as you're going in lieu of trees that was mentioned in the staff report. But otherwise, I think it's going to look great. Before you started, I was wondering what you're going to do with the roof and everything. So, I think I like the color scheme and everything. So, good luck.
Thank you.
Roger. Rachel?
Yeah, it's a absolutely dramatic change, and I compliment the architect. I'm familiar with the building, and I had no idea how it could be changed without actually just pulling the whole thing down. But you've done a wonderful job there. I actually like the idea of a couple of seating boulders around the pond, and that is as an option. And I know I usually say, oh, a bench is just wonderful, but I think some sort of natural seating allows people to go to the pond if they want to. It allows them to walk around it. I do have a concern about the sidewalk from the back parking lot, in back of the building. You indicated that at some point that could be overflow for patients. And I see as they come into there, they are going to see the sidewalk that goes down the building, and they're likely to just trot down there and come to what's basically a dead end. So I think that kind of needs to be rethought if you are going to have that for patients. You see, unless they're going to be able to enter into the through that patio area, unless you've got that set up, you're going to have some confused folks who thought they could get to the front of the building from that back parking lot. So I think that needs some rethinking, or a very clear sign that says you really can go in the back here, but you're going to have to figure out how to get to the reception. I have a question on how close your parking is to the abutter. It looks terribly close. And at one point in your narrative, I believe you discussed some problems with stormwater from the current parking lot sheeting over into the parking lot of the abutter. Is that, am I correct? Did I see that?
No, not as far as we know. There aren't any issues. I think there was a
Okay,
comment.
All right, I'll have to take a look at your narrative again. I think I made that note. So, how close is that parking to the property line?
It's a few feet, so probably about 3 feet.
And you don't think there's going to be any problem with stormwater from draining from that parking lot into the abutter?
I think this is Tom Hennigan. I think what you may have read in the narrative was, because of the proximity, and on this site, this is the only portion of the site that would actually flow onto or flow off the site via overland flow. Everything to the south and to the east flows into kind of existing stormwater infrastructure. So one of the things that we talked about doing was just to prevent any issues or any siltation going off site in that area, was just to put a kind of a crushed stone strip on the backside of the pavement, just to prevent anything from going over there. Because we're not proposing any curbing in that area, so we don't have to add any new catch basins and new piping. And as Sashi said in the beginning, we're trying to maintain the existing stormwater flow patterns as much as possible. That's where the stormwater goes today, but because we're getting a little bit closer, we want to do a little bit of extra.
Okay, so I just guess I think when Robin comes, she's going to probably want to take a look at that. That's awfully close to the abutter. Have you had any conversations with the abutter on that location of that parking lot?
We have not, no.
I think it would be a neighborly thing to do. I also appreciate all the work you've done here, especially what you're looking at in terms of changing the vision from Gorham Road, because as I've traveled down Gorham Road and hit that intersection, I will tell you, it has really been kind of ugly. And your attention to all of the elevations and all sides of the building, I appreciate that and the effort you've put in. Thank you.
Thanks, Rachel. If any other board members with thoughts or comments they'd like to share? Jen? Jen, you all set?
Okay, sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. I agree with all the comments that have been brought up. I think this is a great improvement here. I just have a question about the parking area. Okay, so if you come in on the driveway to the left of the pond and take your first immediate right, there's a light pole on the corner there. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep, that area right there. So opposite of those parking spaces, it looks like the curb line and the proposed limit of paving is kind of set back a little bit. Yeah, right there. I was just curious why that was. Typically the standard aisle width there would be enough for those cars to maneuver coming in and out. And where it does look like this is a proposed curb and paving area. So I was just curious how that shape arrived.
So that is the parking aisle for 18 feet and then 25 feet drive aisle. And we just put a little turnaround back portion to allow that last parking space to be able to back out.
Okay, so that's not.
So this is 25 feet, which is what is required. Okay. We could shrink it if we could, if that was allowed. For such a small area, it might make sense to not have it so wide.
I see. So the width of the turnaround, sorry, so the scale of that was a little deceiving. I see now with the dimensions, the width of the turnaround is a little more narrow than what I was picturing. Gotcha. I just wanted to make sure that that wasn't either intended to be other parking or like parallel parking or anything like that. But that makes sense. Thank you.
All right. Any other board comments? Rick Manking.
No, I gotta just applaud the architect here. It's a much improved building, and what a difference the view from Route 114 or the Gorham Road is gonna be looking down. You took a great advantage of the elevation changes and in your landscaping and the way you've set the building with the windows in the back. Really nice looking. I would encourage you to fence in the dumpster. You've got such a beautiful building and everything. You just don't want to see a banged up dumpster. So I would encourage you to go down that pathway. And on your employee parking side, I think maybe you could buy one of the light poles there. It looks like you have 2 of them. Could be an opportunity to put a electric vehicle charger in there for, some staff that chooses to purchase the EVs that are becoming very popular. But I think you've taken the characteristics of the site and really used it to make the building and the addition on the existing just complements very well. So I just wanted to give you that applaud. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rick. All right. Not seeing any other comments. So I guess at this point, oh, Roger.
Yeah, just a question regarding the operation of this this practice. I noticed there's 22 treatment rooms. This seems to me to be a pretty large dental office. Is it large by dental standards?
It is compared to his other offices. I think his other offices have between 6 to 12 treatment rooms. So this will be a bit larger, but the demand is there. He's just growing out of his existing spaces. So he feels this will be an appropriate size for what the actual demand is.
So this is not, is this part of a franchise, or is it just, he just owns 2 or 3 other?
I don't think it's a franchise. I think it's,
okay.
He just has a couple of other offices in southern Maine mostly.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
All right. So I think that pretty much wraps it up for this one. Look forward to seeing you in your next submission and some stormwater details.
Thank you.
All right. Good luck. Thank you. We do not take up any new business after 10 o'clock. We do have quite a couple more items on the agenda here this evening. We do our best, of course, to not have any carryovers. But so at this time, I'm going to ask that the applicants, when you go to present for us, really kind of try to stick to the high points of the plan. Maybe if it's something that's going to be changed, just stick to those. If it's the major points out of staff comments, whether it's something that's disagreed with or something that you need a planning board kind of input on as you move forward through this process, that would help us out a lot. With that said, I'll call Euphoria LLC, request a site plan amendment for 415 Payne Road, Assessor's Map R38, Lot 31. Jamel?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And this project's actually sort of kitty cornered across the street from the last proposal along Payne Road. It's in the regional business or B2 zoning district as well. It's the existing mainly Tubbs business. So the applicant's proposing a 90 kilowatt ground mounted solar collection array within the southwest portion of their property. The proposal consists of 240 solar panels mounted to steel racking, which are supported by earth screw posts. The proposed solar energy system is required to meet the performance standards set forth in the zoning ordinance. So the board should be sure to refer to these standards if any questions come up while reviewing the application. Given that the proposed solar array is located on an area with existing ground cover, staff has recommended that the applicant have a discussion with the board regarding the revegetation of the disturbed area after construction is completed on the site. There were several other comments related to just plan notes and plan cleanup, but staff does prepare a draft motion with conditions for the board's consideration this evening. At this point, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Jamil. If we have the applicant.
Yes, good evening, everyone. Dan Robinson with Revision Energy.
Hi, Dan.
Hi. We also have Allison Genrich with us, and I believe Jim Van Fleet, the owner, is also in attendance. So after hearing the prompt to move through this quickly, so we can get some of the other applicants through as well, I did just want to note that we really do appreciate you squeezing us into this planning board meeting. We really do appreciate that a lot. So thank you. I guess our project background here is that mainly Tubbs has a very nice kind of vegetated area that is not in use right now. And this is the perfect complement for that to help the owners reduce some of their CMP bills for the very far future. We have discussed, and we've also looked at this from a rooftop application. Also, one of the things that we wanted to point out that we thought was probably important to address was the new CMP pole for our new service for solar only. And I'd like to share my screen here.
While you're doing that, I'll give a better introduction of the plan.
Absolutely, Jim.
We consume about 300,000 kW of electricity demonstrating various products on our site. And that's a large electrical consumption. I have wanted to invest and in investing elsewhere in solar. I want businesses to demonstrate to the public that they need to consider reducing their carbon footprint. By the way, for the board member who is concerned about EV plugins, we have 2 free plugins that will be happening on this site for customers to come. But this is what I think the wave of the future is. We need to be more self-reliant and reduce our carbon footprint in our building and in the way we present ourselves to the public. So there's a quick introduction for you.
Thank you, Jim. So what I just wanted to point out here, and I'll switch over to my Google Maps in a second because it's a little easier to see. But the decision to run this new service here. So this is the new location of the CMP pole, which will be backed up by, I believe, a 27-foot guy wire. And we'll have underground service, small pavement cut, and we will work to run all of the electrical connections underground. And the reason why I wanted to point that out and express what the idea behind that is here is the property on Google Maps. And in this corner here is where the service transformer for the building is. So you can see for us to basically keep this project viable for Jim, we had to look at installing a pole here because running underground conduit from this transformer through the parking lot was just not financially practical at that time. So I just wanted to give a little background on that because I think some of the interpretation and I believe that we've had a discussion previous with Jamal, and I think that was potentially something that we needed to address here. Through the planning board comments, we have sent the notes to our engineering department, and they are working to add these notes to the plan set. And we'd also like to discuss what the, I guess the comments were for afterwards for erosion control and any other items that were brought up by the board.
I could add quickly, the area between the panels will be consistent grass with the rest of the surrounding areas. So it'll be a mown area. We need to keep vegetation down and away from the panels themselves.
Yep.
Okay. Is that pretty much cap the presentation at this point?
Yes, I believe so.
All right. We do have an opportunity for public comment on this item. If there's anyone here that would like to speak on this topic, if you could please use the raise my hand feature in your Zoom, or if you're dialing in by phone, I believe you push a button. I'm not sure what button that would be. You should find that out.
I believe it's *9, right?
Thanks, Angela. I see Heather Piper.
Am I here?
Hi, Heather.
Hi there.
Heather, hi, go ahead. We can hear you.
Can we just see the, since we're in a butter, I'd like to see the map a little bit, you know, like how far it stretches over into the parking lot?
Sure. Did you want to see that on Google or just from here, from the plan?
This is pretty good.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe go back a little bit because we are at 20 Muzzy Road, which backs up to the parking lot. On the other side.
Here, let me try this a little bit.
I'm trying to get a bead on where this is going to be in relationship to my property.
So this is the proposed area here.
Yep.
It doesn't look like there's any impact.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to see much impact, are we, on our side?
No, we're not proposing any, you know, vegetation removal or anything like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's, can you point out again where it is? Because I'm getting a little bit confused.
Sure.
Maybe
So-
on the, I see where the array is. I see that.
Yep. So then I'll zoom back over. So it's just that area there.
Yeah, and I'm trying to figure out where my building is in relationship to this.
So Heather, I'm just gonna I probably should have done this at the start. So when you do your public comment, we ask that you kind of put all your questions into a format where the
Sorry.
board can then kind of turn and ask them.
That's fine. I'm sorry. I will just.
Oh, no
I just
worries.
that's
No worries.
all I had to say. I just wanted to say that one thing. That's all. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other public comment for tonight?
There is one comment in the notes section from the staff that I see just now. The structures that are currently in that section those were temporary displays, and those have been removed. So the section is entirely vacant right now.
All right, I don't see any other public comment on this. So I'm going to close public comment and then just in general, open it up to the board for anyone. I believe, you know, good people to start with on this, if we had to, would be either of the Ricks based on their background. So, but I don't see much. I can't. Okay, Rick Meinking.
Yeah, thanks. I'm going to have to applaud Jim for his remarks that he made at the very beginning. I think these kind of things need to have some visible presence. on Route 1 in Scarborough now, it's visible that you can see the ground array at the new hospice building, which is starting to take really nice shape. And, you know, there's another vantage point for the public to see. And this is a well-traveled road with the Shaws and everything. I think seeing this and the size of a ground array, and if you can make the vegetation in the area after you've done the installation and bring back and you know, have that looking good, it's just going to add another bonus to ground mounted solar array systems. So I think this is great. I agree that that single phase line coming from the other side of the road into this new pole is probably the best thing economically, and to get this thing going, and having to do a cut through the road to lay that down, just you know, you'd lose all your lifetime savings on the energy savings, because you'd have to have that expense. I hate overhead wire, but you know, it's going to a good cause. Are you going to put a remote display inside the store so that the public could see the generation of these panels and what it's producing?
Yes, we are, Rick. I see it as an education project as well. So I want customers to understand that it takes 4 panels to support their own hot tub, for instance, and they're being responsible at the same time. It will talk about the Manly Tub Solar Farm, just because I think that's the a responsible approach. And yes, you will see inside what the performance is.
Excellent. Well, I support this project 100%, and I applaud you for taking the leap and putting this in, and your partnership with Revision is going to be a great relationship that I'm sure you'll enjoy. And, you know, you can always add it on your rooftop to, you know, take care of that extra load that you have from all those energy efficient hot tubs, right?
Well, we do. And we're both employee owned companies. So both companies are 100% employee owned. So it's a great trend there
Well,
too.
Thanks for doing this for Scarborough. I think it's a great project.
Thank you.
That's it,
Any
Nick.
other
Thanks.
questions from the board? We do have a motion drafted on this item.
Hey, Nick, I got a few questions. You knew I would.
Go for it.
This is Rick Dupari. I am with CMP, just full disclosure, but my questions are unrelated to Central Maine Power. They're all related to town stuff. I guess my first question is, how close on that drawing that you have there, you have the tubs in the parking lot, and then you have the solar array to the left of the tubs if you're looking from the bottom up. How close is that array to the road or to that parking lot?
Yeah, hang on just a second. Sorry, Rick, I didn't even notice your name there. Nice to talk to you again.
Yeah.
All right, so I believe this is 67 feet from the actual setback.
I don't care about where I'm going, Dan, is the snow removal and potential damage to that array. Are those tubs there
Okay.
year round, or are they moved in that area plowed?
That area is not plowed. The snow removal happens well to the south, basically. There's plenty of parking lot where most of the snow removal is pushed in this area. And that's where the drain water is too. So it makes sense. The slope of the whole site goes in that direction, kind of southeasterly.
And so that's here, Jim, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So where those tubs are those tubs are normally there year round, give or take?
No, not at all. This photo happened to be taken during annual warehouse sale. So we put tubs outside that are refurbished hot tubs. There's a market for that.
I think I was there for that sale. That was a great sale.
There you go.
All right, so my concern on that, Dan and Jim, is just want to make sure none of those panels are damaged. And I know that this is that's a great company that you have, and The fact that it's employee owned is a wonderful thing, and I'm sure it's going to be there another 100 years. But if this site was to ever change hands, want to make sure that those panels aren't ever, just damaged and abandoned. So that was my concern there. Another concern, so you have an elevation called electrical equipment elevation, and it's your drawing E300. Do you have that, Dan?
Yep, hang on just one second, Rick.
Yeah, no problem. Oh, there you go. So that's kind of showing the, your electrical equipment, and it's showing what the combiner panel and 2 of the inverters. So there's actually, what, 8 inverters on this job?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
So that would continue down.
Yeah, so that's going to be 8 feet high.
Yes.
And what's the total length?
The total length is going to, I would actually have to measure that.
We can probably calculate it, right? That looks like about, about 10 feet, 12 feet, maybe right there. And that's 2 inverters. If you go back to your other drawing, your elevation, you're showing you're showing those inverters, but I don't know if 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You may be showing all 8 on your Google Map one. So that apparatus is 8 feet high, and it's probably 30 feet long.
Well, when we're, what we're going to do here, Rick, is that along with the ground screws, we end up using a couple of more ground screws to build a racking system on the back of that last row. So everything will be contained right in this area on the back row.
Okay. But it's still 8 feet high and approximately 30 feet long facing the parking lot, right? Or am I confused?
Well, facing the parking lot, it's going to be about 100 feet long.
No, just this electrical apparatus.
Oh, I'm sorry.
This is what you're going to see from the parking lot, right?
Yeah, this is what you're going to see. So we've got about 20 inches. Yeah, it's going to be about 30 feet long.
Okay. So I guess my concern there is it's from the parking lot. That's not something that's aesthetically pleasing to anyone really. So my thought is that maybe we should have like a white vinyl fence in front of that or something, just to, not something crazy expensive, but just something to shield all that electrical apparatus from the parking lot. I don't know if any of the other board members have any thoughts on that. Rachel's usually good at making suggestions on how to make things look aesthetically pleasing. I don't think we want to see all that electrical equipment in the parking lot. It's like seeing the dumpster kind of in a way.
You have to have access to it, right, Dan?
You do have to have access to it. I think that, some of Jim's discussions, myself and Jim with others, is that he really wants to use this as kind of a training piece for, curious customers or people that are coming by to charge their EVs. So I think leaving it open, it's going to be protected, of course. We're going to use meshing here to cover any of the electrical connections. But I think it is important to leave that open. I don't know, how does other members of the board feel about that?
I like it being open too, because it does show, some people think it's ugly. I think it looks good because it's what to do. It's hard. You either like it or you don't like it. Flip a coin.
I mean, I guess if it's a training tool and you're going to make it, I guess I'd, so I guess also in the notes, you're using NEMA 3R for enclosures, which is weatherproof.
Correct.
And so those are going to look nice for a while. The utility went to stainless, all outdoors enclosures now are supposed to be stainless steel. Some of them still sneak through 3R, but you know, I'm sure it'll look good for now it might look good for 20 years. I guess, I mean, keep the salt off it. It depends on how much rain and stuff we get, but if I'm the only one that doesn't think it looks all that great, then I think you're fine. Especially if Rick thinks it's going to be a good thing for the public to see, to better understand solar.
I have a question or suggestion. I can kind of appreciate the comment about, you know, maybe it's not aesthetically pleasing to everyone, but also think could be a really cool opportunity to teach both your, you know, your customers and also just the general public about what these things look like that we do typically screen and cover up so much of. Might there be an opportunity to sort of, in a simple way, it wouldn't have to be elaborate, but maybe identify the major components of this with numbers or something and correlate them to a sign somewhere that explains in layman's terms what they are, just because I feel like because explaining it, even just simply, would just sort of reinforce the opportunity that you've left that open as an education element.
I kind of like that, actually.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
I think that's a good idea, Jen.
And it could tie it to the inside display.
Yeah.
With a coating. I'd love to be, because that hasn't been well designed yet, Jennifer. I'd love to give you that would be the spirit of what we have to do. I don't know whether we can put that in words as part of a motion, but I'd certainly want to enhance the educational opportunity here as much as we can.
I think, Jamel, I suspect you probably could do some general provision in there about signage to be reviewed, you know, educational signage to be reviewed by the planning department.
Working on it.
Okay.
Hey, Dan, couldn't you do a nice flat screen inside the tub shop that kind of shows a display of everything happening, almost like the little panel that's in my Prius?
Exactly, and that is the plan, is to have that production kind of meter, you know, inside for all to view. And you know, then we have the real life example outside. And I do think that's a great idea. You know, if that's one of the conditions in there, we can certainly work on that and make sure that that's, you know, accessible for everybody as they're reviewing the production.
And I just, you know, I just try to make it as, it would be nice. And I of course, I don't want you to spend all Jim's money, but you know, if you could use stainless steel, maybe for those L brackets and things, something to make it so that, you know, 5 years down the road, people are still pulling in your parking lot to look at it and buy a tub. That'd be good.
Okay.
Jamel, are you ready?
I'm ready when you are, Mr. Chair. Just tell me when.
Okay. Board members, are you good? Good.
Ready.
All right, Jamel, go ahead.
I think Dan needs to stop sharing his screen so I can share mine.
Okay, I'll do that.
Thanks. All right. So I can zoom in a little more. You read that?
We're good. All right, thank you.
Yep.
I move to approve the site plan amendment titled mainly Tubbs photovoltaic system as depicted on the plan set prepared by Revision Energy dated 4/15/20 with the following findings and conditions. Findings: the applicant is proposing to construct an accessory use 90 kilowatt ground mounted solar energy system within the southwest portion of their property. Proposal is located at 415 Payne Road and will utilize existing frontage. Property is located within the regional business B2 zoning district. Planning board has reviewed the application and supporting documentation and finds that the proposed design of the site plan adequately addresses the site plan review and zoning ordinance requirements for site utilization and layout, access, internal vehicular movement, parking, pedestrian ways, landscaping, stormwater management, lighting, architecture, signage, utilities, and storage. Conditions. Prior to the issuance of a building permit, the applicant shall revise a plan set to include A, the location where the existing structures on the property will be located. B, darken line weight for the solar array and property lines. C, additional educational signage related to the solar array equipment as discussed with the planning board. D, additional plan notes as noted in staff review memo dated 5/11/20. This shall be reviewed and approved by the planning department. 2, prior to the issuance of a building permit, the applicant shall A, provide a required permit through the town clerk's office for the proposed utility pole if the pole is proposed to be located within the Payne Road right of way. B, a maintenance plan associated with the ground cover under and around the proposed solar array to ensure that there's adequate vegetation or other appropriate measures in place. This should be reviewed and approved by the planning department. 3, prior to the start of construction, a pre-construction meeting is required. This meeting shall include appropriate town staff, the developer, and their site contractor, and is to be coordinated through the planning department.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion from the board? Okay, I'm going to do a roll call, and we will start with Rick Meinking. I'm sorry, Rick Duperi.
Hey, I agree.
Roger Beely.
Yes.
Jennifer Ladd.
Yes.
Rachel Hendrickson.
Yes.
Nicholas McGee. Yes. All right. Thank you very much. Good luck to you.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Come stop and learn when we're done.
Can you, hey, one last thing, I just think it would be really cool when you're all said and done, to maybe extend an invite to the elementary school that's behind you. That might be a really quick and easy educational opportunity for them.
It could be very quick and easy, but why limit ourselves to the elementary school when some practitioners at the junior and high school level might be even more attentive?
Fair, sure.
Thanks so much.
Good luck
Thank
to
you,
you.
everyone.
Thank you.
All right. Given the hour, this will be the last item of the evening, and that is number 10. For those that have been waiting, we apologize. We couldn't get to you this evening. It's items number 11 and 12. You will be the first and second on the future planning board meeting. Again, we apologize for not being able to get through it. Number 10, Chris Wilson, requests a preliminary subdivision review, 47 Scarlet Hill Road, assessors map 50, lot 32. Jamel? Rachel?
Yeah, I am a direct abutter, so I'm going to recuse myself from this discussion.
Thank you, Rachel. I'm going to have Rick Meinking. You are now a voting member for this item. Jamel?
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this project's located in the RF zoning district along Scotto Hill Road across from the intersection with Plantation Drive. The applicant is proposing a preliminary subdivision plan for a 3-lot single-family residential subdivision. The plan also includes a new private way. Staff was a little unclear about the conveyance of Lot A on the plans. The applicant has indicated that this lot will be conveyed prior to subdivision approval. However, if the lot has not yet been conveyed prior to this application, it should be treated and identified as part of the subdivision proposal. So the applicant should just update the board on the status of Lot A and if it will affect the board's review of the project. Staff has also offered several technical comments related to the proposed private way and design of the lots within the subdivision. Staff is comfortable with the applicant addressing these comments with the final plan submission to the board. At this point, I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Jamel. For the applicant, we have Mr. Wilson and Mr. Haskell. Mr. Haskell?
Good evening. Let me see if I can share my screen here. So I'm hoping that everyone can see the PDF there on my screen. So my name is Jason Haskell with DM Roma Consulting Engineers here on behalf of Mr. Wilson and MTR Development LLC on his proposed subdivision off of Scotto Hill Road. The address is 47 Scotto Hill Road, lot 32 on tax map R50. And he has recently purchased the land, and he purchased it all under one property, and it was 24 acres. As a condition of the sale of the property, the previous landowner actually requested that Mr. Wilson purchase the land under MTR Development, his MTR Development LLC, his other entity that he uses. And now I would say that we'd have to consider MTR Development LLC as the applicant. MTR has recently conveyed the 1.89 acre parcel identified as Lot A to Christopher Wilson, and is now included, is not included as a parcel in the subdivision under review. As this was the original intent, the net residential calculations on the subdivision plan in front of you do reflect the deduction of this lot area. The remaining 22 acres will be split into two separate lots, making the project a subdivision. Lot 1 will gain its street frontage and access off of Scotto Hill Road, and Lot 2 will gain its access and frontage off of a proposed 220-foot long private road identified as Wilson Drive. We have gotten approval from the police department for the name as well. All lots will be on septic. Lot 1 and Lot A will be served by private wells, and Lot 2 will be served by a public water main extension from Plantation Drive. Actually, it's outside of the right-of-way of Plantation Drive. It's actually in the Scotto Hill Road right-of-way, and he'll be extending across the street and running up Wilson Drive to the house lot on Lot 2. We have been in coordination with the Portland Water District, and they've reviewed and approved our design plans, and we have received the ability to serve. The applicant has also been in touch with Public Works and has some tentative driveway locations approved through the Public Works. We're working with Sebago Technics on the traffic impact fee and should have the results later on this week. And we've also been in coordination with Maine Historic on the project, and they have confirmed that there are no places of historical significance that will be impacted by the project. We've received comments from the planning staff, mostly related to note additions to the plans and schematic lot layouts. With respect to the road standards and the vertical curve of Wilson Drive, not meeting the minimum K value of the public road standards, it is the applicant's intent to keep this road as a private road, and understands that unless the curve is reconstructed, the road will not be accepted by the town. A note reflecting this will be added to the plan. He has no intention of creating a homeowners association for the subdivision, as there's really no reason to have one because of the way that everything was all split off. The applicant would like to receive preliminary plan approval tonight, and hope that you find our proposal adequate and that we can come back for final submission next meeting. At this point, I'm here to answer any of the questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Haskell. I do have a note here that, Angela, you had maybe some technical aspects of this you wanted to kind of bring forward before we reviewed this. Is that correct?
I think Jason really touched on the issue. I think in the staff memo, obviously the K value gets a little more technical on the vertical crests or sags in a road, and doesn't quite hit our roadway standard. And that's where I tried to explain in the memo, as Jason had gone down a path of looking at it as staying as a private way, just because I think it's really going back and looking at the standard and how those K values are set. It's really based on a design speed. And so on a normal public road, we'd want it built to a speed so that would be able to take a certain speed limit. With this being a private way, going to a lower speed as such with this design is not as problematic. I don't see it as an issue. I see it as an issue if it becomes a public street. And I know we get into a lot of these issues with private ways because we do get a lot of private way requests saying, can you accept our street as a public street? So in some cases, as soon as they're built, even though the owner is adamant that it will never be requested. So we just need to be able to make sure that that's documented clearly, and that the intent really is a full redesign if that ever happened, because this would not be a standard that we would accept. And just so the board knows, the K values are really about, I explain them to the planners as like the yes ma'ams, when you kind of lose your stomach as you go over a crest, or in the sags where you could scrape your bumper, essentially when you're changing that angle of the slope too quick. It's not an enjoyable ride at a higher speed.
Okay. Thank you. I'm just going to open this up in general to the board. Does anyone have any questions for the applicant on this? Jennifer?
I'm just curious how far off are you on the K value, and why not build it to town standard, even if you are not intending for the private way to be accepted?
So
I'm guessing based on topology, it has to do with earthwork, but I'll let you answer the question.
nope, you're exactly right. So the town requirements require 75 feet at no grade steeper than 3%, which brings us to this point here. To lengthen this curve, we'd have to start the curve at the same location, but lengthen it. So what you do is you'd be dropping this grade down to somewhere around here, which unfortunately there's a good amount of rock out on this property. And it would be probably another 2 or 3 feet of extra excavation to make the vertical curve meet the town standard. So that was kind of the reasoning for that.
Jen, you have any other questions? You all set? Any other questions from the board on this one? That was straightforward for the most part. All right. That said, I'll, I forgot to, I'm sorry, I'm gonna back up a step. I did forget to open this up for public comment. If you are here in attendance and wanted to speak on this item, do me a favor and just click on that raise your hand feature. I'll wait a second here, see if we can get anyone in. I don't see any public comment on this item. So at this stage, it's
Mr. Chair, if
yes,
I
Jay.
may,
Go ahead.
just I believe I heard it, but I just want to be clear on the point. So it wasn't clear to staff in the application materials. I think the way that Lot A, I believe it's called, was noted, talked about to be conveyed. But I believe I heard Mr. Haskell say that it has been conveyed. So if we could just get a little clarity on that item. I don't know that it plays a big part necessarily in how it would change the board's review, but it certainly would just impact the notes. So just so we know moving forward what's occurred.
So yeah, the documentation's been put together and it's been reflected, I believe, in the real estate document. It just hasn't been recorded, and it's planned to be recorded tomorrow. So Chris or MTR Development has already purchased the overall 24 acres. It's just the recording of the Lot A conveyance hasn't been physically recorded yet, but the documents are already signed and prepared and ready to go. It's not the easiest things right now to get something recorded in the registry. So
sure.
So that is the intent, is to have Lot A. I mean, like you said in and you and Jamel and Angela, when we've been talking, that it's all, it is a separate lot, but it's all part of the subdivision because it's all within 5 years. So, but yeah, that's where it stands right now.
Okay. So we will be able to have that recording data put on the plan sheet so that yep, great.
Great.
All set here.
So
All right.
this is Rick. I'm sorry to interrupt. I know we're running late, but so is this just a 3-lot subdivision? So I'm looking at 3 lots, and it's hard when you're not right there in person, but I'm looking at 3 lots with 3 building envelopes, and that's what we're giving preliminary approval to tonight, or being asked for preliminary approval to, is just these 3 lots on Scott Low Road.
That is correct.
Okay.
And the purpose for the private way is, as I believe it gives lot 2 the requisite frontage. I think if I remember that correct.
Yep, the frontage will be coming, will be from Wilson Drive, yep.
But Wilson Drive is what, I mean, is that the entire road? It looks, I mean, how long is that road? It's what,
It's
100
about 200 feet long, 220, I think is what it was.
Okay. Okay. And the purpose of that hammerhead is just a turnaround right now?
It's for, the fire truck to turn around,
Okay,
or emergency vehicles.
okay. All right, thank you.
Thanks, Rick. All right. Seeing no other questions or comments from the board, I will make a motion to grant preliminary subdivision approval for 47 Scotto Hill Road, Assessors Map R50, Lot 32. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. I'm going to do a roll call vote. Jennifer Ladd,
Yes.
thank you. Rick Meinking,
Yes.
Rick DuPerry,
Yes.
Roger Beely,
Yes.
Nick McGee, yes. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Haskell. We will see you again.
Sounds good, thank you very much.
Good luck to you.
Thank you.
All right. So items 11 and 12 will be tabled for the evening. 13, can we do a staff report, Jamel?
Sure, I have a few items. As you may remember, the Cottages at Sawyer subdivision plan that was approved in February. The applicant did work through the final details with staff for the subdivision plan portion. So we do have the final plan ready for signature. Unsure how to coordinate that. I'll look to Jay and others at the town hall how we could do that, but I don't know. Do you have any ideas, Jay?
Yeah, actually, sorry, Jamel, I don't think I CC'd you on the email. I emailed the board earlier today and asked them to give the office a call before they come in. So sorry, I left you off that one, knowing you're still working out of the home.
No worries, thank you.
But there will be someone here 8 to 4, whether it's, I'm in most this week, but certainly Robin and Doreen are now spending the time that they have allotted in the office. So we have general coverage, still not open to the public, just so folks know. But a little bit more staff is back in the office, not all of us quite yet. Anyway.
You'll take our bags at that point too?
Sure, yeah, that'd be a good idea. Really good idea. Thanks, Rick.
Okay, I have one more. As you may have noticed, they have started clearing trees at the Patriot Acura site, the corner of Higas and my brain's dead, but Payne Road. Thank you.
We had enough projects on that road tonight. How can you forget?
So staff did hold a site work only and clearing, or I guess clearing only really, pre-con with that team, and we're waiting for them to coordinate the official pre-construction meeting process to get the site grading and get that site moving.
Jamal, it
Go
looks
ahead.
like they're preloading on that site. Instead, weren't they going to be putting in pilings and things originally?
As I do recall, I do think they need to preload for the building because the soils were so
Yeah.
poor.
Yeah, I think they originally looked at pilings and different and other geotech methods and ended up with that, Roger.
So that's what I have for tonight.
Thanks, Jamal. Administrative amendment report.
None at this time.
Correspondence. No. Okay. Planning board comments.
I have a question. Would you like us to return the material for the 2 items that we didn't hear tonight in our bags, or should we keep those?
You might as well. Oh, go ahead.
You go, Jamel. Your show. You hit it.
You might as well return them. We don't know if they're going to resubmit next week. So if you just leave them in your bags, you'll get them back that way. We can, put in the new stuff if they do submit.
Okay, and then just a point of interest, I don't know if anybody else looks at them, but the PDF in the folder for item 5 tonight in the Dropbox folder, I couldn't open it. Paper copy sufficed, but it looked like it was saying like a PDF error link or something like that. I didn't have trouble with any of the other files on tonight's agenda, but I just wanted to let you know that.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
All right. My last comment before I make everyone's favorite motion is good job again, guys. I know these aren't easy, so nice work. Rachel, did I just see a quick hand up?
No, I'm just
Okay.
waiting to leave the meeting.
I will make a
Motion to adjourn?
motion to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor? Aye. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.
Good night.
Yeah, thank you.
Good night.
Good night.